Welcome, 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 welcome. Oh, it's a beautiful day so far. It's a little bit nippy outside, and I said nippy, not the other uh, relating to biological things word, because I have Carissa in the live chat out there, and I don't want to offend her. Hi, Carissa, how are you? Been ages. Hope you are well. Everything that's been going on with you. Love everything you're able to do with all the things that you're doing. Obviously, not getting into details, but love it. So thank you for keeping me in the loop and all that. And I'm so happy for you. And we've got Dr. Braxton Hunter out there too. It looks like from Trinity Radio. I am slurping my coffee. I'm so non-apologetic about it because it's good. But anyways, like I said, it's a wonderful day today. Feeling really, really good for a change because people know I haven't been. So enjoy it where you can, right? Oh, great, you're good. That's that's so nice when people that I care about actually are doing good. Makes me feel better. But today we're going to be talking about something that just happened a little while ago, which is comical. And so, I go to I don't like Discord. People know I'm not a big Discord fan, right? I have two Discords. I have the non sequitur show one. I got the rate debate, but I go to some other ones. I talked to Brittany Simon and her Discord and some other people. So I do have a few people on Discord that I communicate with because they don't have Twitter for some reason, or they don't like talking to Twitter. And I will, by the way, we'll have I'll have Brittany Simon on the 22nd. I believe it's 2 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be talking about the difference between how men and women think and how that leads to how we date, how we interact, how we socialize, and how we formulate our beliefs from a male to female perspective. And I think that's going to be really fun. Hunter, if you want to come in here, the link is in the live chat. It's pinned. But yeah, so Braxton says, I didn't realize our sophists weren't pulling their own weight. Get after them. We need all hands on deck. Absolutely, man. If you're going to be, if you're going to be Christian, great. But you got to have the sophist out there making all the Christians look bad. You got to do it, man. I mean, it's a requirement. I don't know if it's in the Bible or not, but I'm sure if you're not a sola scripturist, it's written somewhere else that as a Christian, you've got to have these really fruit on the ground, or I would say at best low. Well, now they're fruit on the ground. I'm not going to put any of them at low hanging fruit. Maybe a couple of them, but most of them are literally fruit on the ground. They have no idea what the heck they're talking about. With the most sophistic arguments I've ever seen in my life, thinking they've overcome centuries of philosophical ponderings and questions. It's kind of like the same thing when people think they've assailed the evolutionary theory, or modern evolutionary synthesis. It's like, no, you haven't. You don't know what you're talking about. Or people think they assailed the general theory of relativity. Nope, you haven't. You don't know what you're talking about. Although I will go on record to say, if any theory is going to be modified to a major extent, it will be the theory of gravity. It has no choice at some point to at least be modified to include the things we know about quantum loop gravity and gravity in general, as far as quantum level. So, but that's not what I want to talk about. So anyways, I was in the Discord, right? And Braxton, you still over there? You still there? Pay attention, because this is how you're gonna increase your sophistic troops out there. So there's an argument being ran. People have been knowing that I've been doing critiques and reviews on that made by Jim Bob guy who does streams with Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson loves that guy's intelligent. I will say you may not agree with his social stuff, and I totally get that, but the guy is clearly not an idiot. I mean, he's just not. He may have misconceptions, or he may not have the right view on science. That's fine, but he's articulate, and he's informed on a lot of different topics. So just because he's not informed on a particular topic doesn't mean that he's an idiot, across the board, right? Nobody knows everything about every topic. Nobody knows everything about even a single topic. So I judge people based upon their own understanding of their own fields or things of that nature. But again, I also judge by their critical thinking skills. And when you run sophistic arguments that you don't see the flaw in when the flaw is apparent, yeah, you haven't really assailed anything. This is why I keep bringing up point 9 and repeating. If you think you've assailed it mathematically, you don't understand maths. It's objective. You're not going to be able to do it, but give it a shot. And if you think you have a proof that shows that equality wrong, find the goal is then to find the error in it, right? John, welcome.
Evening.
Buenos dias, buenos noches. So let me run this by you, John. Let me run this argument. And a guy named Cool Jeff, I think that's his name. I put in the video description.
Like the name?
He goes by Cool.
I have to like the name. It's my father-in-law's name. So
there you go. Cool. So we actually get to the video so I can actually say exactly what it was. Where's this thing at? Where am I broadcasting at? Am I even on YouTube? I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't even know. One sec. I know I have it here somewhere because I just went live. I'll find it. Yeah, right there. There we go. I found it. All right. So cool guy Jeff, 69. That's his name. That's his name. I didn't make it up. He formulated this, and I think it is a straw man.
Sounds like an adult.
He's cool. I'm a steelman. I want to make sure cool guy does know his stuff, and he agrees with me. He's not a young earth creationist. He's not one of the sophists. He steelman the sophist argument. So when I put this in here, when I say formulated by cool guy Jeff to steelman the theist argument, I'm literally meaning that he was like, okay, let me take the best understanding I can get out of this to try to understand what they think they have an argument, because they think they have they think the naturalists and the atheists have contradictions and stuff like this, but they never even understand what a contradiction is. Jeff had asked one of the guys, can you give me what the contradiction is, P or not P, which is the definitive or canonical understanding of what a contradiction is. P or not P would be a disjunction. P and not P is a contradiction. Right? Agree so far,
okay.
John? Okay.
Yeah.
So if I said the sky's blue and the sky is not blue, that's a contradiction.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. So this is what he's saying is a contradiction. And we're talking about information theory. And I don't think any of them understood what information was, because they didn't understand Frege's sense versus referent distinction. They didn't understand object versus concept. They didn't understand reference versus referent. They didn't understand that a concept is pointing to an object. And so see if you can spot the error. Cool guy and I we instantly knew what the error was, but if you guys can. I know it's hard because I'm reading it. It's easier to see, but whatever. Okay, premise 1. Information exists as sense only in minds. Okay? Ready? Information exists as sense only in minds. Premise 2. Information exists, the referent, regardless of minds. Conclusion, contradiction. So let me just clarify, because it's kind of difficult to understand as I read it. The premise 1 is saying that information exists as a state of mind conceptually. Premise 2 says information exists regardless of minds as some kind of ontological, or really is energy. Information is energy in information theory. Therefore, there's a contradiction. Is it either something that exists only in minds, or something that only exists, or something that exists in minds, or something that doesn't exist in mind? So that's the contradiction they're saying. Information exists in the minds as sense, or information exists regardless of minds. That would be a contradiction. So can anybody point out the fallacy there? It's an informal fallacy. I'll give you a hint. It starts with an E.
So you're gonna have to run that past me again, Steve. I hate to be dense here, but
no. I know. I trust me. I get it. Premise 1: information exists as sense only in minds. Premise 2:
so when you say as sensed only in minds,
think of it as a concept, sense reference.
I mean, definitionally, that would be true.
Yeah. Information exists as referent, meaning like the energy, regardless of minds. Like information exists in a black hole whether minds are around or to apprehend it or not. When something falls in a black hole, that information is encoded on the event horizon. That's the holographic principle, based upon the area, the square foot of the area, or meters. I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, ontologically, black holes exist whether we are there to perceive them or not.
Right. So. Right. So there's ontologically there's energy there, because energy is just a form. I mean, there's information there because it's just a form of energy. So when something is encoded, matter of fact, okay. So in my room right now where I'm sitting, there's 3 dimensions. There's a ceiling, a floor, and 4 walls. The amount of information in my room can be described by the amount of surface area of my room. And a lot of people have a hard time conceptualizing that. That comes out of black hole theory. That is part of what's called the holographic principle. So if I want to describe every tensor in my room, every particle vector, everything about my room, all that information to do so is encoded on a 2-dimensional square foot area of my room that can produce the three-dimensional objects in the room. So they're saying that information is only in minds, because information, we have information in our minds, knowledge, and then information exists regardless of minds because it exists as energy, whether minds exist or not. They're saying that's a contradiction, but that there's a well-known fallacy that this is called, and it starts with an E. Anybody? Come on! I thought I taught you guys better than this. It's the most common. It's a very common fallacy when you're using the word. Okay, I'll just tell you what it does. When you use the same word differently in two different premises.
I'm going to be so angry with myself when you tell me this. I know I am.
I'm going to wait for somebody in my live chat. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, John. Not going to lie. Have you been drinking at least one?
It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm on my second glass of wine. So.
All right, good excuse. Hank says for $5, Platonic metaphysics is on Wolfram time now. Computation or irritability will be a barrier to all theories of everything. Science has limits. Cool. Yes, Kimomaki. Equivocation.
For fuck's sake.
Gustavo Lair, and I think this was a guy in the Discord he does something called bird dogging, and bird dogging is a dishonest technique that I see interlocutors using it way back to the EMK days with Dawkins and other people that will constantly try to interrupt you as you're in a flow of speech when you're trying to convey something. So they try to interrupt your flow of speech. So one, it makes it sound like you don't know what you're talking about, and two, you don't have a coherent thought.
Steve, equivocation isn't a fallacy.
Equivocation.
Well, it's just sort of formal fallacy.
No, but I did say informal fallacy.
Oh, did you?
I did. You're drinking.
Oh,
keep
sorry.
drinking. Yeah.
I missed that.
Equivocation is not a formal fallacy; it is an informal fallacy, right? But anyways, when you're talking about a word and using the words differently, so information conceptually, which is the sense or the reference, is mind dependent. The object that is pointing to, the concept is pointing to a referent, is the ontological presence of that particular concept. In this case, energy, because information is energy. I tried to explain to one of the guys who was one of the more, I would say, at least not dumb. I mean, this guy seemed to know what he was talking about, at least as far as like electronics and things of that nature, which is cool. But he wasn't convinced that information can cause heat. When you change information, when there's a state of information that produces heat, so when a RAM bit goes from 0 to 1, that produces heat. There's something called the Landers principle.
But it has to produce heat because it's a state change.
It's a state change. Yeah, the Landers
has
limit.
To produce heat.
And I've been a long time, so I'm hoping I remember and say it right. But that limit is how many electron volts is needed or potential energy to cause the state to change as far as the binary bit. But the actual binary bit can be described in information as heat loss. So when you have a change of 0 to 1, it produces heat.
So state changes. Do you know when I tend to think of state changes like governments and taxes. When money moves from point A to point B, the government takes their cut.
Yeah, well, that's politics.
And it's the same with state changes. Heat, energy takes its cut.
Everything has loss. It's a loss, right? It's a loss.
There's a loss.
So whenever there's information, there's heat loss, but the information itself is conserved and can be reconstituted. Matter of fact, they're thinking that even on the event horizon of a black hole, even though that energy is in a very, very highly scrambled entropic state, theoretically, you could unscramble it given enough time and determine what actually fell into that black hole. That's pretty impressive. So the information is there. It's not lost. This was a famous bet between Leonard Susskind and Stephen Hawking. Right? That is information conserved because Hawking believed that information wasn't conserved and Susskind believed that it was conserved. And the actual explanation was discovered by quantum, which resolved the firewall paradox. That the answer is it's conserved, and when you fall into a black hole, you actually die and you don't die. Welcome to the world of quantum mechanics. Both things happen. To the outside observer, you burn up, you die. To the person falling in, you don't. It sounds weird. This is why there's paradoxes, but this is exactly what the science shows.
I mean, yeah, of course, because I mean, the perspective of the person falling into the black hole doesn't actually change. Like
Right.
the perspective of the person falling into the black hole is just falling in. From our understanding of the physics of it, what they would see is just them falling into the black hole, and then when they get to the event horizon, we lose all understanding of what they would potentially see. But the actual getting closer and closer and closer, time would, relativistically speaking, slow down for them. But from our perspective, but you have to have the two perspectives to have the understanding of, to have a comparison between the two experiences of the flowing of time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Hank said,
and you would essentially end up with, I mean, from our perspective, the person falling into the black hole, they would become a noodle. They would spaghettify.
Well, if the black hole is large enough, yeah. I mean, it's small enough. Because if it's large, then you won't spaghettify because the gradient is smaller. Hank says,
but yeah, you need a sufficient energy density for that to happen.
Right.
But, yeah.
Because the pull is going to be greater at one end or the other. Hank says, let me read this again because he said he didn't hear me. Platonic metaphysics is on Wolfram time now. Computational irritability will be a barrier to all theories of everything. Science has limits, but I don't know what that means. But Draconian says, the atheist worships the fact that they hate worshiping. They worship the fact that they are in denial of life. And that goes to the topic that we're discussing, right? That is sophistry. That's, using very poor argumentation to try to argue a point. Here's the thing. I don't deal with sophistry. I only deal as an entertainment level with sophistry. When somebody's being sophistic or they're being dishonest, I generally ignore them. And if they get belligerent, I block them. That's just how I've been since the beginning of the year. And I told people this. I'm no longer entertaining idiocy. I'm no longer entertaining people that just want to condemn other people. It's wasting my freaking time. There's a million people I can talk to. I mean, between all the things on social media. What's that?
People who make arguments like sophistic arguments, not sophisticated arguments. I should make that abundantly clear.
Yeah.
The problem is that. So just, I mean, obviously, like a clear example of a sophist's argument would be that the classic one is cutting people is bad. Doctors cut people, therefore doctors are bad. It's a really classic sophistic argument.
Yeah, and it's easy to assail, right? It's really easy to assail.
Very, very easy. But the problem is with a lot of these arguments is that they because they're posed propositionally in some circumstances, they sound
how to assail it. They sound superficially correct.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing with sophistry.
And so it is quite, like, I mean, dependent on the argument and whether you've come up with some. I mean, a lot of the religious arguments, the sophist arguments, we've come across them before, and they're running a script. We run our script back against them because there's nothing wrong with running a script. When you've come across an argument 400 times and you've got a script for opposing that argument, you just run your script and away you go, tickety boo.
Right.
As long as you're not a moron and you don't just run the script without actually being critical and going, oh, actually, no, this argument's a little bit different because they've changed this premises or that premises. There's nothing wrong with that.
I absolutely agree. Karis, she's also. What are you drinking, Karis? And why don't you come in? You know how much? Do you know how much you can help my channel if you came in with that sultry voice drinking? She literally has the greatest voice of YouTube. Like I'm not even joking here, and she knows this, right? I mean, so I'm not trying to stroke her ego, which she already has. She's well aware of this.
Please come into the chat.
Oh, she'll melt you. She will.
Steve's bigged you up now. He's bigged you up.
She will buddy you up, break your heart, and leave you decimated and emotionally vacuously void and terminally mentally challenged for the rest of your existence. Just don't do it. Don't play with fire, man. Don't do it. It's dangerous. Hank says there's information energy equivocation, but that isn't fallacious. I don't even know what he means by that. The argument is that I read that's in the video description is clearly fallacious. It's equivocation because it confuses the sense versus the reference, the concept versus the object, which Cool Guy was easily pointing out, but they just weren't understanding that. Pain is information, sure. Someone who doesn't know what worship means, and then I think Kilmaki down here said, Kimwaki said, here, I've never heard a coherent explanation of the meaning worship. Here's I'll give you a stipulative, Chemo. How about this? This again, I'm not looking anything up. I'm too lazy today. So I'm not sitting here Googling definitions of worship. But if I had to like give you a stipulative, how does one sec. How does formal, venerable, performative. Let's see, because formal, venerable worship is usually involved in like performative aspects of liturgy.
I've always understood worship as to love unconditionally and to obey without critique.
Yeah, but worship is generally performative, right? So formal, venerable, performative action would be what I consider to be worship. Right?
Well, I suppose that depends if you.
Hey, hang on one second. Sorry, one second. Hank says, "I'm on my way back to the studio. I want to be called a liar to my face. I didn't call you a liar, and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about." Let me just read these out real quick. Draconian says, "Don't mess with debate the atheists. They're hyperventilating and they're doing what they need to survive." Again, sophistry, waste of time. Is not dealing with sophistry, appeal to sophistry, waste of time. I can't at the moment. Thank you. Okay, that's fine. See, I'm well loved. we go way back. She's the best. Are you kidding? The whole fun of it is me to tell him. Good grief, Carice. Of course I've got to tell Ferb. I tell him everything. That's the whole fun of it. Bros,
so who's Furball in this context?
The only man that I've ever known to be able to deal with her. He's a great guy. He's a friend of mine. Yeah, I got to tell him everything. Yeah, of course. The more he knows. Ben says Alex Malpass had a clear description of sophistry on MVP interview. MVP. What's refresh my memory. And Alex is genius. Yeah. Here's the thing. Derek from Myth Vision, who I was on panel with the other day on S.J. Thomas's channel, because she invited me on as a guest, and I generally will go on panels if I think the host is going to let me speak, right? And she does, and so I like S.J. Thomason. And me and Derek had a wonderful discussion. And I told him, I said, look, I watched your discussion with Jim Bob, made by Jim Bob and Jay Dreyer and Andrew Wilson, and I don't think they understood anything that he was saying. I think that Derek is way over their head. I talked to Jay before. I know he's well read, but he's very sophistic as well. He uses philosophy as a weapon, and that I think is what I would call him out for. But Malpass did exactly that. Malpass had reviewed it, and he basically said, look, these guys are just people that took a couple courses or something or read a few books and way, telling Derek he's way out of their league. And I agree, and I absolutely agree. But likewise, blessed to you, both of you guys. Kimo says, I used to associate worship with some idea of ritual, as you said, performative activity designed to please some third parties. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, but the podcast. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Ben. You're right. Look, brain fart. I'm literally on my first cup of coffee. Go ahead.
So this is the thing with what Kimamakis just said.
What's that? Which one?
So Kimamakis said, like, associated worship with some sort of, like, performative activity. But the performative activity is for the benefit. That's making that seemed to me to be making the assumption that the performative activity is for the benefit of the person stood to your left and the person stood to your right. It's a communal behavior.
Or to God, right?
Yeah, but what I mean is if you legitimately believe, then it doesn't matter if there's a person stood on your left and there's a person stood on your right. The worship, the performative behavior is for the benefit of the deity that you're worshipping, which means it's not that. So
you're doing it because you're wanting to get on the good side of God. That's performative.
Yeah, I get that, but it's like, to me, when somebody says something's performative, I don't know that my intuition.
Performative just means action. That's really
Yeah.
performative. Yeah, I mean, performative can actually have a negative connotation as well, though.
Of course it can. Yeah. But a lot of performative action does have a negative connotation.
But when I say something, right, when I'm talking to you, it's performative. When in speech act theory, a simple utterance of a statement, which communication, words, those are all performative actions. To talk is performative, right? It has to be, in speech act theory. Real quick,
Yeah.
Hey, Milos, how you doing, man? Milos says, no one is more sophisticated than SJ. Come on in, Milos. I love to get your input too. He's always being Milos, aren't you being blocked on Twitter a lot by a lot of these sophists? Don't they like block you sometimes on Twitter? Ben says would say that they, Dreyer, Job, etc., are 80% rhetorical bullies. Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I was over in the Discord earlier, right? And I was just like, this is pure sophistic ignorance. Basic. They didn't even understand the basics of philosophy, basics of science. And if you start talking about anything, when you ask, they ask you a question, and when you start to answer the question and you start answering it in a way that they don't understand, they shut you down. They talk over you, they mute you, they threaten to boot you, whatever. They use these admin type things to silence you because they can't have you explaining things to people that are wanted to understand, because then they lose their power. Because these people that think these people in these discords and people like made by Jim Brown, Bob and stuff are actually educated or intelligent on these matters, they have to have that following, right? And these followings are going to be these religious fundamentalists that think the earth is 7,000 years old or that evolution is false because they're absolutely ignorant of the actual science. Matter of fact, one of them was so bad that he's just basically saying, oh, Steve just follows scientism. Steve just follows, authority, not understanding any of the topics. That's a waste of time. I'm not going to have those dialogues with those types of people. They're entertaining once in a while, but that's not what I'm going to waste my time talking about. I'm going to talk to the people that know what the hell they're talking about and then have a discussion on it from there, like John here, because I know John is well informed of this matter. But I think you're absolutely right. They're rhetorical bullies. Go ahead.
I don't even know anybody who would accuse you like scientism. I mean that.
A lot, yeah, and I'm the one that argues against scientism, right? I'm the one that argues it with.
But that's the thing. I don't get that. That's
because they don't understand. They don't get it. This is because again, it's okay to run a script, but when your script is so idiotic that you just throw out these pejoratives and these invectives to try to minimize somebody's knowledge or somebody's argument, that's dishonest argumentation. I am anti-scientism. I literally have had videos that I've talked about anti-scientism.
Well, I mean, it's like you don't advocate for scientism. You're not a physical reductionist.
No, I'm not.
I mean, yeah, I don't.
And I'm an objective moralist. I'm a moral realist for the most part.
Yeah,
I'm everything they hate as a non-believer because I don't fit into the mold of the angry atheist. I don't fit into the mold of the atheist experience who try to teach atheism on a piss poor level to atheists who are now going, oh crap, maybe I need to learn a little bit more about these topics. Maybe I need to up my game. And now look, the atheist experience is a fraction of what it used to be. And
let's
not.
Don't up your game. Let's not piss off anybody else. Let's just stick with who we've got so far.
All right. So the Copernican myth is asked, why is Sophia associated with feminine nature? It is used as a subtle weapon. Well, Sophia was considered in the Gnostic literature as the syzygy of Jesus, right? Because in the Gnostic literature, Jesus and Sophia were these mythical beings, especially Sophia was called a lesser aeon or eon. And she wanted these things called emanations, which is the production of the universe. And this evil god named Yaldabaoth was a trickster god. And he was trying to lie to people and say that he created the heavens and the earth. And heavens in this case was referred to as Plamora. So Sophia got kicked out of Plamora. And she became that syzygy of Jesus, the feminine aspect of Jesus, the counterpart to Jesus. And in doing so, she instilled upon mankind something called gnosis, which was the knowledge of an unknown God. And that unknown God was the creator of the actual universe. So when you ask like what Sophia is associated with the feminine nature, because it was the...
We're wallpapering over the concept of the knowledge of an unknown God, I take it.
Yeah. Well, the unknown God have been the God that created everything. But see, the Gnostics looked at the God of the Bible, the Yahweh, to be probably equivalent to Yaldabaoth. That Yahweh of the Old Testament was the trickster god. Kara says, "Is essay still a thing?" I've still been watching the antics of KJ, which are many and salacious, worthy of so much pop. Oh, it's getting worse. There are so many channels talking about it now. It's ridiculous. I've gone back to my philosophy because I don't even need to deal with it any longer. I've let other people take up the mantle for that. I occasionally will, but Mila says he might join. Cool.
I'm assuming KJ the sociopath has now been firmly put to bed.
She's still thriving, but again, when you have when you're able to do dishonest things, you're always going to thrive a little bit. Dishonest people have an advantage. They will do things that the average person who isn't a sociopath won't do. We understand we have moral obligations, and we have lines that we won't cross. They have no boundaries. Sociopaths that are evil, that are narcissists, they have no boundaries they won't cross. Their whole existence is predicated upon smiting people.
There is an attrition rate that goes with that, though, that you don't get with an honest person.
Well, that's true. Real quick, I get some more coffee. Don't hijack my stream too much. Don't put me off YouTube because I'm getting coffee.
Oh no, Steve, you've fallen down a well.
Get your super chat.
Oh my god, read chats.
You stuck at shilling. Oh. All right. You suck at shilling, by the way. Ben says...
I would advocate for everybody signing up to your channel.
Thank you. Yes,
becoming subscribers, members.
Like and subscribe.
It's absolutely worthwhile content. I enjoy it.
Thank you. Especially if you want to learn about atheism, because that's what I've been really talking about a lot.
Well, not just atheism, but just having a good conversation. It doesn't even really matter what it's about. But I mean, how many conversations?
Yeah, we have fun.
Look, you could drag like a complete, and I don't say this from the perspective of a pejorative. I just say this from the perspective of, well, I suppose it is pejorative, but you and I could drag the simplest person on the face of the planet onto this channel, and we would both be motivated to try and give that person information.
Absolutely.
There would be a sense of humor to it. There may be some mocking to it, but it would come from a place of trying to give that person as much information as we thought that they could possibly deal with at the time. And that includes myself. Like when you have had guests on your channel where I've been the moron in the room and I've been the one absorbing the information.
Well, I mean, we all talk to very educated people. Ben says Dreyer is educated. Absolutely. But it is like he stops thinking and shifts to rabid apologist mode. I've noticed that with Jay. But I will tell you, about 5 years ago or so, and I just made a short on this. By the way, are you in a wind tunnel or something? Are you in a bar?
What, me?
Yeah.
No, I'm sat in my living room.
What's all that background noise?
Well, I've got the wood burner on, and also, it might be my headphones actually. I've got some new headphones. They're bone conducting, so they've got open mics. So that might be the issue.
Yeah.
Is it proper whistly?
Yeah, a little. It has a little whistle, and also it like you need a noise suppression on it.
Right. It might be the gain
or noise gate, or just turn down the gain a little bit. You can. If not, it's not a big deal. It's not.
I don't know if I can.
The outside doesn't give a crap. But yeah, Dreyer was on like 5 years ago, right? And I had asked him about the tag argument, and he said that the way I was describing it, which is pretty basic, and in philosophy, he wasn't advocating that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now it seems like he does, though, and so I don't know if he changed his position when it came to tag, but yeah, I think he weaponizes, these whole presuppositional argumentations, and I think he tries to argue from a place of sophistry. And I mean, like I said, I don't know Jay Dreyer very well. I've only talked to him a handful of times. We get along. I mean, like I said, I have nothing against the guy, but he does go into rabid apologist mode, and I think he throws away everything he learned about philosophy just to do so. And I don't know why. Yeah, you can join. Yeah, you can join. Just put turn your camera away. I won't. I that's fine. Put something over it. Kimo says, except that the word can you mute for a second? That's bad.
Oh, me? Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, so much difference. I don't know what it is, but because when you're not talking, there's this constant background noise, and I definitely think it's your mic or headphones. Kimo says, except that the word sophistry comes from the Greek sophistis, which means to amounts to wise men. That's true. Yeah. Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. Good name for a restaurant, Plamore. Yeah, I like that. She's lesser known in Athena. I'm a lonely political realist. I'm not political at all. Hardly. Trump sucks. Hey, Kano. Sounds good to me. I don't know what sounds good to you.
Also, Trump doesn't suck.
Trump sucks. Shut up. We'll have that for another day.
I wasn't trying to cause an argument or anything, or maybe I was.
I will kick your ass out, bro. I'm kidding. We need. You know what we need to do? We need to get Chris from Hereticals on. You, me, and Chris, and we'll have a political discussion on. Well, I'll do a special episode of Over and Under. That's a show I used to do with Chris, Over and Under, because I was in America, he was in Australia, so Over and Under, and we would discuss politics, and it was amazing. It was so good. It was so good.
You definitely don't want me in a political discussion. I'll get really fucking angry. Like I don't get heated in like the religious debates or like, but the political stuff I get really fucking upset.
I don't. Look, here's the thing. I piss off everybody across the board. I'm a centrist, and even though centrists can vary a little bit because the Overton window is just smashed all the shit. I don't know if it even means to be a Republican or Democrat any longer. I don't. They're two peas in a pod to me.
They're the same thing. They're the same fucking thing.
Right. The horseshoe theory is real. Okay, I mean,
they're the same thing. It's just one comes after the other about 18 months later.
That's horseshoe theory.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to get rid of all the politicians in office and start fresh. I don't like Biden. I don't like Trump. But anyways, real quick, Hank is not an atheist. Hank is a polytheist. Yes, Kino is correct. He does suck. Yes, Kino is wise beyond her years. Yeah, turn on noise cancellation. Anyways, somebody said they was going to come in. Come on in. And you know what's so funny is, as a non-believer, I want people to come in and challenge my positions, but I do so fairly. I want them to come in honestly. And when you're in a Discord with like Made by Jim Bob and that group over there, they're not honest. Straight up, they're just not honest. Jim Bob, I happen to like the guy for some reason. He's personable, and when he's not being a complete dick in Discord because he uses admin control when he knows he's not capable of having a dialogue about a subject he's not read on because he won't read the literature, he won't edify himself, he won't go learn because he doesn't want to, because he doesn't think he needs to. He doesn't think that matters. He doesn't think that it's important to actually know what the hell you're talking about if you think you're going to sell something. And I got one more outside. I think I can hear that.
Sorry, Steve. Can I just check? How's my mic now? My background noise better?
So much better. What'd you do different?
Oh, good. I've completely changed headsets.
It's apples and oranges, dude. It's
yeah.
It's like, oh my god, so much better.
Yeah. So I got a set of Shocks bone conducting headphones. So when I'm like cycling or walking or working, I can hear what the fuck's going on around me, and I can still listen to stuff. And the mic it's great because everybody can hear me when I'm working, but it's obviously designed to deal with background noise.
Right.
Whereas I've just chucked my gaming headset on, which has got over ear headphone, totally different.
I can't even tell you how much more superior it is. So much more.
Cool.
Yeah. And so like I was saying though, I mean, I want to be challenged with actual dialogue, and all they do is try to shut you down. You try to answer a question, and all they do is just bird dog you. All they do is just talk over you. It's a waste of time. This is what I'm saying. I will make attempts. I will talk to people that want to have a conversation, but if I'm feeling like they're trying to be obfuscate, or they're trying to shut down the conversation, or try to prevent you from putting out information so other people can learn, I'm not going to waste my time with those people. It's just not happening. And I recommend nobody else does either, because like exactly, Jim Bob reads everything like a script and not an honest script. There's a difference. I mean, he's so fundamentally, profoundly wrong on just about everything, but he's literally trying to promote to an audience that doesn't know the difference. I mean, you got to remember, most of his audience think the Earth is 7,000 years old, and that literally dinosaurs walk with man, and that there was thousands of animals on the ark. This is the level that they're at, and it's bizarre.
But like trying to wrap your brain around how wrong that is in terms of
answer me this real quick, John. Answer me this with your thought. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's important.
No, by all means.
How is it that PhDs who actually used their actual knowledge and deep time to get their PhD believe in younger creationism? Oh my God, that's so loud. Once I wanted to get that out because I knew that was coming. Go ahead, John.
So
you
one.
there?
Yeah, still here.
I heard the lawnmower, so I'm trying to get this out because it's super loud, so then you can talk.
Oh, well, I didn't hear any of that. All I heard was you saying how you were talking about how PhDs.
Yeah.
And
So PhDs that use deep time to get their PhDs that actually do understand the subject, they either one of two things, and I will let you answer. They either one know that young creation is BS and they're lying just to get people to save souls, because like Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson said he would use his Harvard education to manipulate people to get them to believe just because they thinks that the ends justify the means. He did say that something along those lines. Or two, they're so deep in the rabbit hole that they have cognitive dissonance and they put their faith ahead of the science, and that is subdivided into one, the people that don't recognize they have cognitive dissonance and will never admit that their faith is taking superior over science, and the other ones who say, yeah, we admit this, we don't have rationality for it, our belief is unfounded, but we rather believe this than the science.
I sort of have more respect for the theists, the young earth creationists that have an understanding for the science and acknowledge the science and go, I'm gonna proactively ignore this, even though I know it to be true, because I have a presupposition about this belief. Because at least I know that all of the things that they've considered it all, whereas the person with the cognitive dissonance, the person with the you've got a person who has two sets of processes going on in their brain, and they've elected to choose one over the other. And you've got another person who has two processes going on in their brain, and one has just sort of bubbled to the surface, and they've not actually chosen one over the other. It's just,
I agree. Yeah, I think
I sort of have more respect for the theist that goes, no, you know what? Fuck the science. This is my bed, and this is where I'm making it. Even though they know the science
is wrong.
Like,
well, they know the science obviously they don't care. Yeah.
But I can't. It's mad from my perspective. It seems it's obviously wrong. It's going to lead to bad conclusions and bad outcomes. But at least they're fucking committed. At least
I agree with you. Yeah. Look, this is why I get along with certain expert creationists other than the low-hanging fruit, right? I mean, Dr. Jonathan Sarfati is clearly not low-hanging fruit. That dude is a genius. Straight up. Sarfati is one of the smartest, probably the smartest creationists they've got, by all means. Right? He's certified genius.
So I think this for me is ultimately the case. If you hand me a principled person, if you hand me a person who has a deontology that they are prepared to stick to no matter what, because I have a set of deontological principles that I will stick to almost no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of respect that person. I respect that person much more than I respect a consequentialist or a utilitarianist. I respect that person because they have a set of principles that they have committed to. And if they actually stick to them, then they're a known quantity for actually sticking to a principle, even if I don't agree with the principle that they have.
All right, let's run with that for a sec. Ben says, Ben, why don't you come on in? He says, Jason Lyle only espouses young earth creationism when he's a young earth creationist per General Han Solo, which is a very smart guy. General Han Solo is brilliant. His name is Robert. Everybody knows that. It's not doxing. He goes by that. And Jason Lyle, I think he's right. I think Han Solo is right on that. That Jason Lyle puts on his young earth creationist cap when he goes to young earth creationist, but Jason Lyle knows the physics. He knows it well enough because he knows how to make a sophistic argument about his asynchronous light transmissions, both BS, right? He knows it's a philosophical thing. He knows he's not assailing the deep time. He just knows that he's going to fool enough people that they're not going to be able to understand why we can't measure one-way speed of light. That's really
this also makes sort of religious fundamentalists that actually understand the physics quite dangerous, because they can frame it in a way that from a common sense perspective seems unbelievably convincing and very difficult to overcome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, but look at like Lyell's argument.
They can essentially weaponize their understanding of the legitimate physics, even though they're being dishonest.
If you're a creationist and you read about the anesiotropic synchronous, it's the anesiotropic synchrony convention. Is that what he calls it? Anesiotropic synchrony convention. That's what he calls it. ASC. If you read about that and you didn't know anything about astrophysics or philosophy, you'd be like, "Wow, that's brilliant." Why? Because it's true. He's not wrong. He's not wrong about his convention. But what he doesn't explain to people is that's just a convention. It doesn't matter. I could make it a convention where I make the Earth the center of the universe. I can make the Earth the center of the solar system by using mathematics, by using Galilean transformations.
Well, from our perspective,
the Earth is the center of the universe, or the center of.
But from our perspective of the visible universe, we are the center of the universe.
Yeah, but that doesn't make us such, right? It's convention.
No, it doesn't actually make it the case. But from our visible perspective, and that's perfectly rational, reasonable. You can make a rational, reasonable argument from that position. We know we're not the center of the universe, but because it looks like it's the same argument as like before we understood. Before we had a perception of celestial bodies outside of our, like it's the difference between having a reasonable conclusion and a correct conclusion. There's a difference between the correct conclusion and the reasonable conclusion. Like based on the information that we had, we were reasonable to conclude that all of the celestial bodies in the universe orbited around us. Until we understood that the Earth was spinning, it looked like we were the center of the universe. As soon as we realized the Earth's spinning, oh, well, actually, no, we're not necessarily the center of the universe. We're just spinning on a top. You get one little bit of additional information, and all of a sudden, the conclusion that you had that seemed reasonable is no longer reasonable anymore.
Yeah, I agree. But like I was saying, I could make epicycles work and show the planetary motions using epicycles, but it's very, 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 very complicated. Why do you need that when you just have elliptical orbits? This is what Jason Lyell's doing. He's taking something that is explainable using parsimony and Occam's razor and making it far more complicated merely because you can. So what? But when people say Jason Lyell's is wrong in his argument, I don't think they understand the argument. He's not wrong. It's just a convention. But so what? I mean, it's like, hey, the Earth is the center of the universe. Well, how do you prove that? Well, here's Galilean transformations. Oh, crap. Yeah, you're right. People don't know math, right? But anyways, 9258L. What a name, man.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
I can. What up?
Oh, I'm nothing from the Discord server, Jim Bob's Discord.
Oh, nothing. Oh, yeah, you're one of the few there that actually seem to know what the hell he was talking about. I'm not going to make assumptions, but I'm going to make assumptions. You clearly have at least had formal education or read something on these topics. Would that be correct?
It depends. Yeah, I've read a bit. I wouldn't say that I have much knowledge of physics though, so I couldn't really say anything.
No, philosophy. I'm talking about philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I've been studying like analytic philosophy for like 6 years on and on.
Yeah, but do you see how it knows the difference between somebody who's actually read the literature and read and understands it? Because when here's the problem that I see, and let me ask you, especially from that Discord, if Jim Bob wants to think that he assailed these things, don't you think he has to read what he's assailing to understand it, to then try to assail it? Because his approach is comical, is puerile at not even best. It's not even sophistic. It is just childish. It's so bad. It's not even bad. It's so wrong. It's not even wrong. So to speak.
Well, who did a good approach? Who made a good argument then? Because the best one I found was from Roy Sorensen. He's the best by far.
Yeah, who's that?
Yeah, yes, you do. I told you about him when I was on the time before last, when I explained my theism. He wrote that fictional theism article.
Fictionalism. Yeah, fictionalism. Yeah. Nobody that I really read though, but I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But anyways, real quick. But I want to know what L thinks. I'm just going to call him L. It's easier. L. Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to L because that's what you're going by on the screen, rather than nothing. But do you see that their arguments are super super bad?
It depends. A lot of times that I don't really understand them often because they're like not very categorically rigorous. So I don't really know what's going on per se. It depends. I mean, I could see some of the intuition and some of the appeals. It's not always clear to me.
All right, that's fair. I mean, okay. How about the argument that's in the video description about the sense versus reference? Were you listening to Cool Jeff talk to them and try to explain Frege? And it was Frege, it was Geach, and it was Kripke that really kind of dived into this particular topic about.
Oh, no, Jack showed me that one. Yes, so I saw that.
Okay, so what? How is that not a equivocation? If they're confusing the concept of information, which is really a conceptual idea of the sense, with the reference, which is information ontologically, which is the energy, because information is something that exists in the universe. It is a part of the universe, just like a force, a field, energy, mass. All these things are fundamental things of the universe. So our concept of information points to that ontological thing of information. And they're saying premise one, and I'm just going to distill it down. Information only exists in the mind. Premise two, information exists outside of the mind. Therefore, there's a contradiction. That's really what it boils down to. And that's ridiculous because in one sense, they're talking about the concept. In the other sense, they're talking about the energy. Information as energy, or information as.
So there's an issue with the definition of a concept and object. So at least when I talked to Bill Gaty about this, you can't really, they fall into each other. So pretty much he says a concept's a group of objects, but then you can have an extended object, which happens to be a concept sometimes. So
that's fine.
The definitions fall into each other. It's context dependent.
But that's just a second order, and so that's fine. But L, what do you think of that argument that I gave, or that they gave, and that cool guy Jeff formulated, and I think did a sufficient job of steelmanning? You're still.
All right, what I just changed my headphones.
Okay. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, although the main issue is that there isn't like a lot of clarity in this discussion. So yeah, I do understand all of the terms involved, but like formally, it's quite unclear to me.
What about that argument?
I understand Frege and the arguments. Oh, the equivocation on the distinction between sense and reference.
Yeah. Do you think that he equivocated?
It's possible. I don't know if he equivocated or if there's like a language gap or at least like a nomenclature gap.
Well, yeah, but if there's a language gap and there's a fundamental misunderstanding, because
you could
words
technically
have
say it's an equivocation, but
so can we, on that basis, then, if there's can we do this in reverse, using formal language that you're happy with? Can you still man the argument that you think has been laid out, and then give your critique of it? Because we are genuinely interested to hear what you think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't actually know how to formalize it because I don't really know what's going on.
The argument, I'll formalize it and make it as simple as possible. Premise one, and again, I'm just distilling this down. Premise one, information only exists as a concept of the mind. Premise two, information only can exist independently of the mind ontologically as energy, which they don't recognize is energy. They never mentioned energy, which is surprising. Therefore, there's a contradiction, because the contradiction is information exists in the mind, and then only in the mind, and then information exists outside the mind, which would be a contradiction. And it's funny because cool guy Jeff was trying to get one of the guys to tell him what is P and not P. If you say it's a contradiction, that means P and not P. What's the contradiction? And it would have been easy to just say the contradiction is information is exist only in the mind, information exists outside of the mind. That would be a contradiction. But nobody there was able to even formulate what the contradiction was. It was just throwing out contradiction.
I think one of the issues is that meaning is often taken to be a property rather than a function derived from a relation. So meaning isn't really, like when you say that something is meaningless, you're solely talking about language.
Yes.
You're solely
cognitively meaningless. Yes.
Yeah. So when we say that, well, there are various respects in which a statement could be meaningless. It could be distinctly meaningless, meaning that it supervenes on a set of information that's insufficient to distinguish it from another in a certain context of language use. But then in another,
those would be instances, right? If you have an ambivalent statement or ambiguous statement, that would be meaningless. Or category area.
Well, like he's talking about shade of color.
It would be interpretation relative, but
Yes.
So what I would say is meaning is really just a semantic assignment function.
I absolutely agree. Noam Chomsky would have pointed out that. Would he have not? I mean, Noam Chomsky's famous thing, colors green ideas sleep furiously, is grammatically correct, but it's semantically meaningless.
Yeah, it doesn't have like clear truth conditions.
Right.
But okay,
it's
so
semantically meaningless. Correct.
When you say that something is semantically meaningless, you're saying that it has a mention but not a use. So we can only speak of it in the meta language and like a higher order analysis of language itself being used.
Well, we could just define a meaning for it. We could assign a meaning to it, and then it's meaningful.
What would the meaning be for that? If I say 2 + 2 = purple, how do you assign meaning to that? I mean, you could obviously make some stuff up ad hoc, but saying 2 + 2 = purple is arbitrary.
So we could make some kind of color map, and we have purple mapped to 4.
Yeah.
In that sense, 2 + 2 = purple.
Like a coding system.
Yeah.
But if we hypothetically suppose that there's no under our putative understanding of the term purple, there would simply be no means to establish this connection to yield an output.
What about something like what does purple smell like?
So we could have like an olfactory map that maps
no, the color purple, not the smell, not like a olfactory. We're talking about the color itself, purple. You can obviously
I don't know what that means. I don't know what the color in itself means. So you have to explain that to me.
Purple, irrespective of being.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Look at your shirt.
Yeah, I see it, but it's shirt. I don't know what you mean by color itself.
I
interpret this as purple. But color itself is a nonsense.
To be honest, I don't really take a view on like the cognitive status of category errors. I think that there are like compelling cases for category errors being false. It depends on the category error, but I don't really hold a position in that respect.
Are you a color realist?
What do you mean by that?
I'm a color irrealist. I say that colors are phenomenological only; they don't exist ontologically.
Oh, so like a direct perception theory.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the same theory.
Yeah.
That's why I said color in itself is nonsense. So
essentially the wavelength that we perceive exists. But what we see in our dreams, for example, when you're not perceiving a wavelength.
Right. We can perceive a color in our dreams.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's interpreted.
It's interpretive, yeah.
There's nothing to do with photonic energy when you're dreaming and you see color clearly.
Obviously not the case, yeah. But then again, but you could also make the argument for all memories, like the vision of your mother, your father. They existed to you, but when you dream about them, they don't actually exist in your dream. They're not doing what they.
Well, they exist in a dream, or I wouldn't see them in my dream. They don't exist outside my dream.
But I dream about things that haven't existed. Like
they don't exist outside my dream.
But actually, no. I should say I have dreamt about things that I haven't had knowledge of in my waking state.
But they exist in some.
The universe is infinite, so I can't say that I've dreamt about things that don't.
Yeah, you could say.
How would you dream of a square circle?
with
certain
taxi
things that-
cab geometry, you can draw that.
Anyway,
hang on. Taxi cab geometry does not resolve that. You can't. Taxi cab geometry does not square the circle.
No, true.
You want to take a look? Let's look up
I
on
know.
Wolfman's
I
definition.
know what it is. It doesn't square the circle. I assure you. When you start dealing with
You-
infinitesimals, you're outside. You're not dealing with the actual problem with having an
But
actual
the
square
definition of the circle in the taxi cab metric
No,
is a square.
Steve is absolutely correct. That
circle. I
like,
know.
Let's take
there
a
are
look
certain
at it
things
then.
that-
Let's take a look at it.
but
I don't want to get down in the weeds. Just anybody can go look at the taxi cab and the way they.
Well, you look at the text and just look at the text and you see that Steve is incorrect.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll end it from there.
Yeah, because if you could square the circle, I would be highly impressed because they actually mathematically prove you can.
Well, you said there was no square circle. You can look at the
There's no
text and
square
see you're
circle,
wrong.
which is
Now
not a
we
square
can move
circle.
on.
Well, no, I mean you're
Okay, we can look at that then.
it is mathematically the case. It is logically the case that you cannot square the circle.
We can move on or we can look at it. What do you want to do?
It doesn't matter. Anybody go look at the when you're using taxi cab mathematics,
Okay.
you're defining. Listen to me. You're arbitrarily defining a square as a circle. It's linguistic in that aspect.
Yeah.
They're defining the square to be a circle in taxi cab mathematics and that taxi cab geometry. That's not what we mean by a square circle. If I say here's a square with 4 sides with internal angles of 90 degrees with 4 lines, both of which are parallel to 2 lines are parallel to each other on either side, 4 internal 90-degree angles that have orthogonal relationships.
We're arbitrarily
listen,
defining a set of characteristics
that is the definition of a square for a polygon shape. When you start dealing with taxi cab metrics, you're dealing with infinitesimals, and you're dealing with the fact that they're going to call that a circle. Just like a circle has infinite amount of curvature. We know real actual infinities don't exist.
Yeah. In the same way as a hexagon.
No, circles don't exist now. I don't understand.
A perfect
Like a
circle
square-
does not exist.
Perfect
a
circles
square-
don't exist. Do
a
non-perfect
hexagon-
circles exist?
A hexagon can't be a square. A pentagon can't be a square.
Square is a non-perfect circle.
Decahedron can't be a square.
A square is a non-perfect circle in that regard.
Okay, so the circles I'm looking at in the on your stream with pretty much you have a circle for your avatar. John Foley has a circle.
That's
And
not a
so
perfect
L.
circle. That's
Those
not a
aren't
perfect
circles.
circle.
So those
They're-
what shape are they?
They're circles, but they're not perfect circles
They're not. Then how do you know they're circles?
because by definition,
Oh, okay.
mathematics
So-
is definition.
A circle can exist in mathematics. Mathematically speaking, a circle can
A circle has
exist.
infinite amount of sides. So if you have a square can be considered to be an imperfect circle in that regard because it has 4 sides. Now you go to 5 sides. You can go to a polygon, an octagon, a duodecahedron, whatever many shapes you keep adding to. You
Yeah.
can do that an infinite amount of times to get a circle, but you can never add infinite amount of sides to get a pure circle.
A 10-sided roundish shape will appear to be a circle if you get far enough away from it. It will appear to be round. A perfect circle to your perception if you get far enough away from it. The perfect circle, like in maths, a perfect circle is technically seems to be possible, but we can't actually construct one. It doesn't actually exist.
When you say actually exists, you want to specify a place where it doesn't. Where I don't understand what you mean by actually exist.
Well,
When I say talk about exists, I specify what place it's at
the
or
closest
not at.
the closest thing that we could get to an actual true circle existing would be that every change in angle would be a single atom.
Yeah, the granularity of the universe. The only place
Yeah.
actual circles really exist, if they do exist, is what's called a Platonic realm, where you have an archetype, Platonic archetype. And the Platonic archetype is a circle. And then every circle of that is an instantiation of that particular archetype. These are called universals or universal forms. This is the whole basis behind Platonic realism, is that there's a realm of objects that exist. And every instantiation, just like a color or property, like the property green would be an instantiation of this perfect green that exists in the Platonic sense. Al, would that not be incorrect? Because they didn't understand nominalism in that discord. When Kuhl was asking, the difference, what really makes nominalism, which is basically just a linguistic way of understanding universal and abstract objects, they were just I don't know, obfuscating, because you can subscribe to nominalism and then the next day go to Platonic realism, whatever convenience you want. You're not beholden to these things. It's all philosophy. Do I want to treat them as actual objects? Do I want to treat sets as abstract objects? Do I want to treat circles as something that actually exists? Okay, great, do it, and then have an argument that comes out of it. Or I could go to nominalism, and there's different forms of nominalism. Some accept abstract objects but deny universals. Some accept universals and deny abstract objects.
Yeah.
So
the Platonic notion of forms is like ancient. It's like, describe a chair. This is a classic example. Describe a chair. Oh,
it's a thing I sit on.
Yeah, that goes to form of
so
reflection, right? Form
yeah, chair's a thing I sit on, whatever it is.
But is a rock a chair?
I'm sitting on it, yes.
But is it a chair and a rock?
But I sit on it, yes.
No. Does a chair have 4 legs? Does it have 3 legs? Does it have a cushion on it?
The reason
why I'll show you this chair. So it has 6 legs. It does have a cushion on it. Wait, no, 5 legs. 5 legs. It has a cushion and it has some pneumatic.
Yeah, the reason why we have form versus function discussions is because we categorize linguistically. I was pointing this out in linguistic categorizations, what it means to be something and what it means to be in that set. So certain things are in the set that would be considered a chair. A rock would not be considered a chair linguistically because that is not the semantic meaning that we're utilizing for that particular object. Yeah. The purpose of a rock is not to sit on. The purpose of a chair is to sit on. There's a teleos there.
So if I sit on a rock, I'm misusing it.
Are we talking about a stance-dependent telos or a stance-independent?
I
want an answer. If I sit on a rock, am I misusing the rock?
No. Just because something does not have a function doesn't mean you can't use it for something else.
I know what I've noticed is I think that a lot of you have like these like sort of like, especially within like this like precept reemergence, like this neoclassical Platonism or whatever you want to call it. There's almost like this naive conception of like the justification of universals. So if you like say you're a nominalist, they'll ask you like this really, really oversimplified self-referential question. Are you a nominalist about nominalism?
Yeah.
If everything is a particular, is that itself particular?
Etc. That's
I just say it's a bad question.
It's conflation.
Yeah. When someone asks me, I usually do nominalism or anti-realism or sometimes around realism. When someone asks me a question like that, I say that's a bad question.
I don't even know if it's a bad question. It's just like it's not really like a question that touches at the heart of the matter.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bad question because it doesn't make any sense.
Like they don't understand. I'm not even like, I'm not going to just single out Orthodox. I'm going to also like refer like any sort of like traditionalist, revivalist view that tries to get into Platonism.
Now if I asked you if my hat is true, you could say it's a bad question because it doesn't make any sense. There's no context.
It's not propositional. Well, it's not truth apt.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as like, something being, like function over form, whether it depends on us or not, I don't really think is relevant. Whether we categorize a chair to sit in or not, whether some kind of actual nature of the universe that's, as
it's pragmatic.
Yeah, it's pragmatic. And so whether it's stance dependent or not, I don't have a view on it.
I think that a lot of people don't understand like joint carving disputes, for example. Like there's a lot of literature on like Goodman and various other thinkers who already went over like all of these topics. But then instead of reading it, like the naive like neoclassical Platonists will continue to make the same like argument.
Postmodernist, in my opinion. They're Platonism
yeah, but
never got into it. They're having a resurgence of Thomism too.
Yeah, but I've been further than postmodern. I'm
think
post-truth
Thomists
now.
have
I
actually
totally
made a
dominate them.
decent,
how is it that you deal with that Discord though? You obviously have read up on this stuff, and you clearly know way more than any of the people in there. Except maybe Jeff knows what he's talking about. But how do you deal with them? I mean, first of all, you're a theist. Can I ask?
No, I'm not.
Are you an atheist?
I would say I'm like a restricted theological non-cognitivist.
Okay.
So it depends on the view. But...
Okay. Well, I'd love to have. I would love to talk about theological non-cognitivism one day. Maybe we might get into that when we move on here, because I used to be. You call it restrict. It's funny because you call it restrictive theological non-cognitivism, and years and years and years and years ago, I used to refer to myself as a partial theological non-cognitivism. I think we probably do for the same reason, but I'm no longer. But I've well past moved theological non-cognitivism. I think.
I think. Yeah, I did have a bit of like a logical positivist phase a few years ago.
But you get where I'm coming from, right? You seem like you understand why I would say I was only a partial theological cognitivist, but yeah. Okay, so we'll get into that afterwards. John, are you back?
Yes, sorry, I'm back. Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Dracone says, if I can figure out how to square the circle, I can figure out the Trinity. Yes, great. Oh,
they summon my chart. They just summon my chart like magic.
I can't.
It's a miracle.
I can't even read it. It's so small on my screen.
Oh, let me blow it up a little more. Sorry.
What am I looking at, and why do I?
Oh, so that's my Trinity model. This is when I talk to Christians, I try to use this one because theirs one doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not even going to dive into this because this makes no sense to me, and I'm like,
yeah,
attempt to, but other people can. Sure.
Well, yeah. I'll go ahead and explain it.
I wanted to continue.
You what? I don't know if I want to get into this. This makes It's just such a.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I another time, Hank. That just makes no sense to me, and I think it's way off topic. To be honest with you.
Well, you have a theist to beat up, so go.
I don't beat up theist.
Well, you should. It's for entertaining.
No, I don't.
I do.
Well, that's then you have a channel for that. I'm not against. I'm not an anti-theist. I'm against anti-idiocy. I'm against people who think they have solved philosophical problems that they don't even understand. I'm against people who think the evolutionary theory is wrong, yet they don't understand it, and they certainly have not refuted it.
Well, you
have got a stupid chart. Let's tear it up.
You know.
You have got a stupid chart. Let's rip it apart.
But
put that dumb chart back there. Let's tear it apart.
No, I'm not interested in it. But I want to know. Okay. I want to know why is it they don't come after you as hard as they do other people that know what they're talking about.
It may be that I just let me think. I do have a habit of I'm very autistic, so I have a habit of just using the jargon that happens to come immediately to my internal monologue.
Okay.
I often don't clarify until asked otherwise, which is a problem, I admit.
Yeah, no, I can sense you. You're very parsed. You're very low key, quite introverted.
Yeah, partially.
Well, we were battering back and forth quite a bit, and Hell was. I get the feeling that you potentially had quite a lot to say, but didn't say it.
In the Discord or here?
No, here right now.
Oh.
Like with the, I don't know why, but you seem, you clearly have a good, comprehensive understanding of the terminology, but you said that you weren't sure what was being said based on the imprecise language that we were using. Like we were using
in the chat, in the Discord chat.
Oh, in the Discord. So not necessarily right now.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought in the Discord chat.
Okay.
Because, for example, okay, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say in the voice chat, they basically like, because one guy doomed something or other was just like, "Oh, Steve, you're being childish. Just shut up." I'm like the only guy here with Jeff that seems to have actually read the literature. But if you don't want to be educated, I'm not going to waste my time. I don't bother. I just leave. Because there are other people that they want to learn about this stuff. I'm not going to waste my time with somebody who's that dumb. It's not going to happen.
That then was a misperception on my end. I thought, El, that you were saying that we were being imprecise.
No.
Discord. Yeah, he was talking about Jim Bob's Discord.
No, fair enough.
They're very. You know what's so funny? There's a handful that might have had a little bit of readings, but like Jay Dreyer clearly is educated, but they misuse it because they put apologetics ahead of critical thinking.
Yeah.
Oh God, I know.
Stephen L. Do you think I should try my hand on Jim Bob's Discord? I haven't joined it yet. Do you think I should join it?
I suppose you could join.
I'm not going over there right now, but I mean, I will tomorrow.
Put an invite to it in the private chat.
I don't even know how to do that. El can. I'm not a Discord person. I suck at it.
I don't know if I want to open up a link right now. You could just go on his YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, it's on his YouTube channel. Just find one of his videos. He has it.
And then he has it in the description.
Mm-hmm. That's how I found it. But yeah, they use controls in Jim Bob. It's so funny because I've already explained dishonest techniques that people use, right? And I go bird dogging is one of them, and that's when you constantly interrupt somebody. But there's another technique that they use, which is and I've seen this happen so many times back in the Google Hangout days. Somebody will start talking, somebody will interrupt, and that person who interrupted will claim that they're the one being overtalked. Darth Dawkins is infamous for this. Jim Bob and one of the other guys do the exact same thing. There you go.
Steve,
I didn't
stop fucking interrupting me, damn it. Steve.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Isn't that exactly what they do?
I don't understand the point of interacting with Darth Dawkins. I used to be a bit more a few years ago. I was a bit more friendly with Darth Dawkins when I was a Catholic, and I would talk to him 3, I think.
Okay, I go back about 6 or 7 years probably with Darth.
Yeah, I probably do go back about 4 or 5.
Yeah, just when he was on POW Talk. I didn't know him on POW Talk. This was probably 2013, 14, and then he migrated over, and then 2015 or so.
I would talk to him about philosophy, and he would tell me he doesn't understand the terms I'm using. When I would I would bring up basic things like the analytic synthetic distinction, and I would incorporate it into my arguments against atheism, and he didn't understand it.
All he has to say to refute that is constant analytic distinctions. There is no difference. There you go. Done.
I mean, yeah, you could take the Quinian or whatever.
Quinian, yeah. But
the thing is.
But do you think he understood, a posteriori versus a priori, and what the actual when somebody meant a synthetic distinction that the object was into the predicate? Do you think he would actually know what that meant?
Oh no.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, potentially after a few days of research. But.
Yeah, but all of us have talked about these subjects for so long. And they try to get Darth to understand these things. And now Darth does have a probably better understanding, but he also is better at weaponizing things because he is literally a walking principle of explosion. He argues contradictions.
Philosopher speech.
Yeah. But two can play that game. But I actually do not like jargon. I try to use it as little as I possibly can. I know it has a well-defined meaning in philosophy as much as philosophy is well-defined, but I hate jargon. But that's just a personal.
I feel a lot of people who bring up. Go on.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, I feel a lot of people who bring up Quine haven't even read a page of the Two Dogmas.
I've read the Two Dogmas.
Maybe you have.
Yeah, and I've also read Quine's indispensability argument and also the Durham Quine thesis. So
yeah,
there's, and again, I may not remember crap off. You actually read the Two Dogmas, it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly. Just like Ernest Sosa wrote a Pyramid in the Raft, and the first couple pages, I'm like, yeah, dude, this is brilliant. This is awesome. By about the 5th page, I'm like, I'm a freaking idiot. Have you ever read the Pyramid of the Raft by Sosa? Holy God Almighty!
Oh, I haven't.
Yeah, give it a shot. Like I said, first couple pages, he's talking about particularism and Methodism and how we know what we know, and do we start with what we know or do we start with how we know? And I'm like, yeah, this is all good. Getting about the 5th page, I'm like, I'm so lost. And so these are complicated subjects, but at least I only expect people to understand what they were. If somebody mentions to me the two dogmas, at least they know what it's about. If they mention to me indispensability theory, at least they know what it's about. They don't have to have read it. They don't even have to have a profound understanding of it, because I don't. But they don't even know what they don't even know. Like when I mentioned the holographic principle, one sec. When I mentioned the holographic principle, because Jim Bob was talking about information and information theory, he had to shut down that dialogue. He was telling me, "Oh, you're going off in the weeds. You know, shut up, Steve." Blah blah blah. Because he was realizing that I was pointing out a massive hole in his understanding on a topic he was trying to argue, a massive misunderstanding or a lack of understanding.
The Pyramid of the Wrath by who? Well, I want to download that. What is it called again?
What?
The Pyramid of the Wrath by who again?
The Pyramid of the Wrath by Ernest Sosa. It's talking about coherentism versus foundationalism, which I tend to weak foundationalism. I used to be more of probably a classical foundationist, but I take out the ought. That's really that way. I don't think we have an obligation to these foundational axioms that we ought to use them, which is, I think, of a more stronger classical position. I think as a weak evidentialist, we have to. We're obligated in the sense that we have no other choice. You know?
Yeah, this is a later topic, but I probably align with like Carnapian epistemology, maybe not entirely, but certain facets. Like in the empiricism, semantics, and ontology.
Yeah, empiricism versus rationalism, right? The two literally the two dogmas. Yeah, literally the two dogmas is empiricism versus rationalism.
I'm not an empiricist, but
I both. I'm not
rationalist.
I tend to rationalism, but I also tend to empiricism for science. So I don't. Quine argues is there a difference? Is there a difference between empiricism and rationalism? Because if you're looking at it, you're rationalizing the evidence that you're looking at. Kimamaki says, I read Sosa's Raft and Pyramid based upon Steve's referencing it years ago, and I'm still kind of sore at him for it. Very dense read. Yes, it is. I wasn't joking. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's what it's called.
Yeah. But again, it deals with coherentism and it deals with foundationalism. But when this is funny because they're talking always about truth in that discord, knowledge, justification. And Jay Dreyer the other day, I think, was being sophistic as hell because he was talking to Derek from Myth Vision, and he was asking about justification and conflating things with knowledge just to kind of trip him up. And I don't know if it was willful because I know he was skillful. Well, that's a good quote, huh? I don't know if he was willful because he's skillful. He's skillful, but so I don't know if it was deliberate. But there are different theories to answer these questions, and it's perfectly fine to appeal to these theories. That is the accounting. When you're asking for an accounting for something, how do you account for knowledge? I use the correspondence theory of, I use the justified true belief theory of knowledge. That is the accounting. How do you justify something? Well, I'm using coherentism. I'm using fountism. How do you know what's true? I'm using the correspondence theory of truth. I'm using the pragmatic theory of truth. I'm using the causal theory, direct causal theory of truth. I'm using consensus theory of truth. These are what you're appealing to. And this is what I'm saying. When people say, how do you account for this? You account for it by the theory. If you're asking how you account for the theory, that's a completely different question. And so I think it's very, very rhetorical and very sophistic when people start asking, well, how do you account for that? How do you account for that? What do they mean by that then? Because an accounting is an explanation. How do you explain your position to say that you know something? Because I meet the conditions for justified true belief. I meet the conditions for direct causal theory of knowledge. That is how you do it. They try to go way beyond that to try to trip people up, and I think it's very, very dishonest.
Oh, okay. Well, that stuff doesn't trip me up because it usually resort to empiricism, then say, well, I see it here, and then there's nowhere to go. Say, I just have the thing, I point to it.
Yeah.
Then what now?
That. Because here's what they do. I'll run the little precept nonsense, right, Hank?
Go ahead.
So when you're looking at an object, right, you're assuming certain things like reliability of the senses. You're assuming things like uniformity of nature, which cannot be justified rationally because you have to use reason to justify your belief that there is not going to be some kind of weird change of the universe, that these constants are not going to change.
I don't give a God gave me the ability to see the things, and it's right here. So what now?
But the direct theory of causal relationships for knowledge is basically how is it you're able to claim knowledge? Well, one, proposition is true, then you default to, like a correspondence theory of truth, like R and Ra would do. Two, you believe it, right, which is just your mental state, or at least as far as your propositional state on the proposition. And three, what makes it true is that there is a object there that you're looking at that's causing this direct causal relationship. And so this connection between the mental state and the physical state is direct causal theory of knowledge, at least the third condition for it.
Oh, that's an issue there, because I can see the thing doesn't necessarily make it true. Someone can cast an illusion on you.
It doesn't matter. It does not matter.
It is X.
It's not the converse doesn't matter. It's not working that way. It's only working. The causal, direct causal, is that it is imprinting something on you. Could you be wrong? Yes, but we're not talking about infallibility. We're not talking about certainty. This is where the preceptor and that group of,
you're making the mistake of looking for an absolute.
Yes,
which is
and that
what
is where the
everybody looks
preceptor
for.
lies about.
That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for, the clue is in the description, justified.
Justified, right? And this is where
and then they'll appeal to sorry.
Go ahead.
And then they'll appeal to like a marginal indeterminacy. So like
fair possibility.
They'll say, oh, even if it's not absolute, is it absolute in like this marginal justifier?
Yeah.
Well, you can always make an appeal to their God, then contradict it out of existence and just blow it up with logic.
But the point is that when I try to explain to atheists how to justify their positions, this is how you do it. And when the preceptor's arguing something like, well, how do you know that? How do you know that? They're not honestly engaging. They're not taking you at your understanding of the material. They're trying to weaponize it to beyond those theories. And so you say, well, how could that object not exist? Yeah. Demonstrate to me that it doesn't exist. And at that point, I will retract my claim to knowledge. Because as Ozymandias brilliantly pointed out years ago, and I wrote an essay on it, go look it up on the www.greatdebatecommunity.com, called The Principle of Attribution and Retraction, which, by the way, the certification for that site has expired last week. So if you go to my site, it'll say there's an error, a certification error, but it's perfectly harmless. Yeah, he fixes it once a year, and he just didn't get to it so far.
I mean, Zali just took his SSL off his site because it's annoying, so it's not really a big deal.
It's like I said, soon it has to do the date of the certification, but my web master will fix that eventually. But go to www.greatdebatecommunity.com, and there's a article that I wrote called The Principle of Attribution and Retraction. And basically what that means is that when we have a doxastic state, when I believe something, if that belief turns out to be false, I don't say I never had that belief. What I said was I had a false belief. So beliefs can be false. But if I have a claim to knowledge and I find out I was wrong, I don't say I had false knowledge. What I say is I retract the claim that I ever had knowledge to begin with. Big difference, because knowledge cannot be wrong. I can't say I was wrong and I had a false knowledge. I can't say I was wrong about my belief. Therefore, I'm taking back my claim to knowledge. That's principle of attribution and retraction. And so if they can demonstrate to me that the tree that I'm looking outside is not an actual tree, or barn is actually a fake barn, as they would say, in the Gettier problems, now I would say that I retract my claim to knowledge. Now, in the Gettier cases, they will say that you don't have.
I don't like that framework. I just don't like that framework.
I have the issue. I have an issue with the Gettier cases.
Here's cool guy Jeff. He's going to try to come on in, hopefully. But what's the problem with the Gettier cases? Because I think that Gettier is right on target.
My issue with the Gettier cases isn't in the specific claim to knowledge or the specific claim to belief. Mm-hmm. My issue with the Gettier case is that there are more potential wrong answers than there are right answers. So if your paradigm, if your methodology for coming to knowledge throws up more wrong answers than it does right answers, then what you essentially have is a methodology for discovering wrong answers rather than right answers, even when they look wrong or right.
Let me give you the pushback.
So actually, if you concatenate a series of beliefs or a series of conclusions, then the Gettier case essentially solves itself on average.
All right. Well, let me talk about that for a second. Cool guy Jeff is having dinner in a few. Come in for a minute before the dinner, though. Come on in. Since I put your steelman, and I did tell him I was going to totally rip him off. And I put a steelman in the video description, but I gave him credit. Go look, your name's there, cool guy Jeff. I did not plagiarize you. I gave you credit. I gave you attestation. But for the Gettier problem, okay, so what Gettier was really saying was that for any belief first theory of knowledge, you're going to have cases where there's a possibility of epistemic luck, and if it's epistemic luck involved,
Of course.
actually, it was Linda Zagzebesky that actually pointed this out. She made it very clear that for any belief first, you're going to have these epistemic luck, any one of them. So Gettier noted these issues where you didn't actually have knowledge. You thought you did, but you were wrong. But at the time, you thought you had knowledge. But what you do is you retract that. They didn't actually have knowledge. You didn't have false knowledge. So even with Gettier cases, you can still have knowledge. It just made a note of that in many cases where people thought they had knowledge, they didn't, because their knowledge wasn't justified correctly. This is why.
Yeah. So for the sake of the audience, should we lay out a Gettier case or?
Yes,
go
lay
ahead.
it out. But I actually don't like the framework.
Yeah, go ahead. Because real quick though, I think that direct causal theories don't eliminate Gettier, but I think they at least help a little bit. The pragmatic theories, to me, or knowledge first, will eliminate those problems, I think. Go ahead.
So the classic one is a person presents themselves for a job interview. They do the interview. It goes very well. They leave the job interview, and the person who interviewed them says to them, "Oh, you did really well. We're going to be giving you the job." And the person who has just been told that they're going to be getting the job has 10 coins in their pocket. So they reasonably conclude that the person who is going to be getting the job has 10 coins in their pocket. The next day, they get a phone call going, "Oh, I'm really sorry. We actually misidentified you. It was the other person that was getting the job." And they coincidentally had 10 coins in their pocket. The conclusion, the result that they came to, the conclusion that they had, was correct. They actually had knowledge based on the paradigm of their argument.
Well, they thought they had knowledge.
No, they did, because it got the assertion rate, even though it has no link.
It really
hang on,
depends on whether you're fallible.
Hang on.
Yeah, because it's very important to point out they thought they had knowledge. That's the whole point of the
But
Gettier.
the methodology, the reason, the information that they had that caused them to conclude their quote unquote knowledge was wrong.
Correct.
So everything, they got the right answer. 10 coins in the pocket by luck.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I dismiss Gettier cases in JTB is because there are infinite.
Oh, where'd it go? John, calling John. We can't hear you.
Sorry,
There you go.
my bad. There we go. So the reason that I don't like Gettier cases from the perspective of JTB is that there is a Gettier case is always possible.
Possible, yes, but here's the
It is
distinction.
always possible.
Yeah, and that's
There's
why
always there could be a random person, like this principle, this example of the Gettier case, the classic Gettier case of the person with 10 coins in their pocket,
but this
being
is true.
picked for the job.
But as Zabesky pointed out, every belief first theory will have that problem with epistemic luck.
Yeah,
And
it
so-
has to have that problem.
But here's the thing, John. In the case where it wasn't actually 10 coins. It was was it like 6 coins or something? If I remember, 5 coins. But
I mean, obviously the principle's the same.
But here's the thing: the proposition was false.
The conclusion was correct, though they had knowledge by the
They
framework.
believed it was going to be him. The proposition, John got the job, right? Or John's going to get the job. That's a proposition. It has to be true. And because you believed it, it's just is true, and you thought you were justified, but the proposition wasn't true. You can't have knowledge, and knowledge can't be false. So every case of the get your problem is the fact that you didn't have knowledge.
You stayed a shift.
I have to correct you there. The proposition was not that John got the job. The proposition was that a person with 10 coins in their pocket got the job.
Fuck, you're right.
Yeah.
Therefore,
by the get your framework, they had knowledge, even though the method was pretty bad.
John, I have to swear a blood oath against you as a mortal enemy now. I'm sorry. I really liked you, man. But you know the rules, man. If you correct me and I'm wrong, I have to hate you for eternity. I didn't make the rules, man. Okay.
Welcome to the club.
But this. We are talking about a classic Gettier case here.
Right.
You have to get this right.
I agree. No, hey, look, when I fuck things up, I fuck things up, man. You're right. Absolutely, you're absolutely 100% correct. But Jeff gives me a super sticker for $5, so fuck you all.
You could probably buy almost a coffee with that.
That's what I'm drinking. Dude, I've finished the pot almost, so I'm a little wired. That's probably why I'm all over the place. That's why I probably fucked up the giddy air there.
Hey, I'm on my third glass of wine. I got it right.
Yeah.
Drink better coffee.
Right? I got Maxwell House and I got Folgers. And I drink Folgers in the morning. Like when I'm going to work, I'm going after the day. If I go outside, I drink Folgers. But if I'm in the house chilling, I drink my Maxwell House. I don't know why. It's just
I don't make it. Doesn't make it.
I say
the Maxwell House is cheaper.
Folgers wakes me up more, and Folgers is like super good coffee. So when I really need to go out and get the stuff done during the day, I drink my Folgers. But if I'm just chilling on the day off or something, whatever, I'm having Maxwell House. But I asked Jeff how he's doing so far, and he gives us a super sticker. So that must mean that we're doing okay.
Yeah. You know what I do? I actually mix some tea with my coffee. So I'll maybe put some a packet of black tea or green tea in, and just put it in with the coffee grounds.
Oh, I love my teas. I got turmeric tea. I've got black root tea. I think it's called berry tree. I got apple tea. I've got chamomile tea. I got all kinds of teas. I love my teas. Love my teas.
But I'll make an abomination by putting the tea in with the coffee grounds, and I'll run the drip coffee maker.
Nasty, actually.
I love it.
I don't think I can.
You should try it. You should try it.
I don't know what it would be like to put instant tea in a coffee machine.
No, instant tea, normal tea.
Oh, normal tea, like tea bags.
Sorry.
Yes, I'll open the tea bag, put it in with the coffee grounds, and run the coffee machine.
I never thought. I've never actually thought about.
Stop.
Tea bags.
Whoa! Stop. What the fuck is instant tea? As an Englishman, I feel the need to ask this question.
I don't know what that is.
What? Tetley
instant tea.
Yes, Lipton, Tetley. Literally, it's tea, and you just take a spoonful of it and you mix it with hot water or cold water, and it makes tea.
What?
Are you serious? You
Are you sure you don't mean matcha? But you know what matcha is.
I mean, Lipton. It comes in lemon too, which I don't like. But Lipton instant tea. I like Tetley instant tea. There's also
no. I like lemon in my tea. I can have lemon in my tea, depending on the type of tea. But instant tea.
I have lemon and honey in tea when I'm not feeling well. It's great for the throat, and that's good. But generally speaking, I just have sugar or artificial sweetener in my tea. That's generally what I put in there. But I also can put in honey and lemon sometimes. So I'm not too. But I don't like lemon in instant tea. The lemon they use for instant tea doesn't taste like real lemon. How do you not know about this stuff?
Show him the abomination. I have the screen shared. Show it to him.
We might actually have to reinvade.
Yeah.
If this is a thing.
This is why we left you, John. This is why we left the United
Kingdom.
Kingdom.
For instant tea?
Instant tea.
Yeah, Steve, share my screen. Show it to John. Show him the abomination. Yeah, that's what instant tea is allegedly. That's allegedly instant tea.
What the fuck is this?
It's powder.
Powder tea.
It's pop. They pulverize tea and you just drink it like it's cheap matcha.
Can you find Tetley?
An abomination. What kind of tea?
Poor,
Tetley.
poor bastards.
Pentley?
Tetley. What'd you see? Tetley. I think it's spelled.
No, we have Tetley tea, a good, solid Yorkshire tea in a fucking tea bag.
But no. Tetley instant tea. You
Oh,
have
okay.
that?
It's Tetley instant tea.
No,
Yeah, Tetley instant tea is my favorite. It's super good.
look, do I fucking freeze dry coffee? No, I don't.
Let's do it. Let's do freeze dried coffee.
Freeze-dried coffee's nasty. I want it fresh.
You should at least give us the courtesy of not fucking.
Uh-oh, we found it.
Powdered Tetley tea. There you go. That stuff's amazing.
Oh my fucking God.
John is going to have a coronary as an Englishman because you know what's funny is you probably never did hear of this. You're not just joking. You have never seen iced tea before.
No.
Instant tea. Wow. This is what I when I hear people talk about something that's strictly Canadian or UK, I'm the same way. I'm like,
freeze dried tea. Like, you
I
can't.
finding out what poutine was years ago. Hawkeye Champ was talking about poutine about 6, 7, 8 years ago. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. He's like, what? You guys don't have poutine in America? I'm like, no. But then some restaurants do, but it's very rare. But yeah, instant tea, baby.
Oh my fucking
Your
gosh.
entire life has been a lie.
Wait, hello? Oh, never.
Yeah, his entire life has been a lie.
That actually hurts.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Okay, we can put. I'll put that away now.
Yeah, I'm so glad we.
Wait. Can anyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we did it. Yes, John. In America, we are lazy. We have instant tea, and it's really good. We also have sun tea. Do you have sun tea?
Really good.
Yeah, sun tea is amazing. But I never thought about putting tea bags in my coffee maker.
Steve, we've had a lot of disagreements. I've never wanted to reach across the screen and actually strangle you before, but really good.
I get it. Oh, yeah, look, you eat some nappy stuff over there that I could be like, are you ready? Yeah. Nope. The things I've seen English people eat. Oh, no. Never.
Look, whatever you've been eating, we've been eating it several hundred years before you were, so don't worry about it. It didn't kill us.
You know what I want to try? Because I've never tried it before? Scotch eggs.
Scotch eggs. Yeah,
Oh, I like that. It's easy to make. I like them.
I have never in my life found a place in America that have Scotch eggs.
Just make it your own. They're pretty easy.
No, I want somebody to prepare them. Authentic English Scotch eggs.
I mean, they are particularly cruel on the chicken, but you know, Scotch eggs are pretty good.
I've never had one.
No, they're great. They're amazing. Like if you get a nice, fresh, deep fried one as well, like with a runny yolk in the middle, fucking excellent. Really good. Bit of mustard. Oh, exceptional.
Yeah, I actually have a place near me, but it's somewhat near me. It's in my tri-state that makes Scotch eggs. Let me get
I don't know any place in California that has them, but I would try them.
No, they are. So basically, for those of the audience that don't know what a Scotch egg is, it's a soft-boiled egg with sausage meat on the outside of it. So the yolk and the white soft-boiled. So you got a nice runny yolk in the middle with sausage meat on the outside of it and breadcrumbs on the outside of that, and it's deep fried. And when you cut it in, yeah, so you get the runny yolk, you get the firmness of the white, you get the sausage meat, you get the crisp of just beautiful, perfect. Yeah, excellent.
That's so good.
Like the perfect meal.
Now I actually have to go out and get some food. I'm waiting for Kano to come back, and we planned this day to do housework stuff. And I told her, while you're out, I'm going to be streaming. But when she gets back and gets situated and stuff like that, we've got housework to do. This is our roommate house day. And well, I got to keep the housemate happy, obviously, because you wouldn't like her when she's not happy. Nobody wants to know I'm not happy. So I've spent years to keep her happy. Understandably so. You don't even know who Kano is, do you, John?
Sorry, say that again?
Have you ever talked to my roommate? I don't know if you have. Have you ever talked to my roommate? Oh, he just dropped out accidentally. I think he's having mic issues, but anyways, okay. So man, that went over the place. Where are we at? I don't even know where we're at.
What they don't know yet is that I'm the secret general of theistic sophistry, and I was appointed by Eris. So they don't know that. The reason I'm the general is because I can get atheists fighting with each other, saving a lot of resources.
Not in my hangouts.
You just fought John over tea.
Sorry,
well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. John has waged eternal war with me.
My browser had a complete brain fart for some reason.
I think it could have handled instant tea. Your browser's English.
Well, it's Google. So, sorry, you were saying you literally it cut you off when you were saying something about your roommate.
Oh yeah, I said I was waiting for her to get back so we got housework to do today. This is our housework day, so she's back. But she's gonna settle in, then I'll be ending the stream soon, so we can get some stuff done today. Sound good?
What the fuck you talking about? I've been up since 5 in the morning.
Yeah, I know, but you've been out. Now that you're back, we can get the housework done.
No, I'm not doing housework right now.
No, I know.
There's something familiar about that. There is something so familiar about that. It's like, I'll be done soon. It's like, what the fuck you mean you'll be done soon? We got some housework to do, bitch.
She went out at 4:00 in the morning to go to the gym because she goes at 4:00 in the morning, and she's been doing errands and other stuff. She's been busy.
4 in the morning for the gym. Jesus.
Yeah, that's where she goes to the gym, and I can understand why. It's not very crowded, I guess, at 4 a.m. and yeah. But anyways, let's get back on philosophy stuff for a few. That was fun. And dumping on their Discord, even though, like I said, I still go to their Discord. There's some cool people over there I do talk to. Obviously, El Hill is pretty cool over there and cool guy. But for the most part, it's just entertainment when I'm talking to those guys.
I don't know. I don't really.
Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere, and it's just spinning your wheels. But it helps to understand the other side's poor arguments, so you can help people that actually want to learn these things understand them better. That's just simply what it is. I mean, again, you're dealing with people that think that Noah Ark was a real story. I don't know where else you go from there.
Yeah, Erica from Gus Gibbon completely annihilated Noah's Ark. They can't get around the heat from. They need a miracle to make it work.
I'm sorry, real quick. I have no gain control, but I can talk closer to the mic. Does this help? I'm talking right into the mic.
That really doesn't help, Steve. It feels like you're whispering in my ear.
Oh,
it gives me chills.
So
you know what? I'm gonna go get some. I'm gonna make some instant tea, and I'm gonna drink that instant tea.
Yeah. So the restaurant I got the Scotch egg from, Bobby D's Burgers and Barbecue in McKees Rocks, calls it a sausage egg bomb.
Sweet.
Fried sausage egg bomb.
Sweet. Back on the
fried sausage stuffed with cooked eggs and served with sriracha ranch, and it's really good.
But as you mentioned, the heat problem is the death knell to young Earth creationism. No question about it.
With
no
sriracha, just
I like sriracha.
Fucking no.
I like sriracha. I would try it with
if you can do a Scotch egg, do an authentic Scotch egg.
How about with mayonnaise?
For fuck's sake. Sriracha.
Is it mayonnaise English?
Well, it makes it an Indian flavor. It's Indian mix.
Well, hang on. Can you put Scotch eggs with mayo?
Well, you can dip it in whatever the fuck you like.
Yeah, well there you go. Then you can put
just make the legitimate Scotch egg.
Yeah. So the sriracha's on the side, obviously.
He wants it on the side. Well, in that case, I do apologize if it's on the side. Yeah, if he's using it as an emulsifier to make the Scotch egg, then I'm going to fucking kill him.
Yeah.
No, they don't use an emulsifier. They have it on the side.
No, but that's what mayonnaise. You have mayonnaise. That's an emulsification. I would try Scotch eggs with Grey Poupon. That sounds really
with a what?
Grey Poupon. Oh, good lord! You're killing me here, bro. You're killing me. My whole life is gonna lie. You don't know what Grey Poupon is either?
No.
Where is this kingdom that you call united?
So with it, what I didn't hear what you said.
We're not on the same planet any longer. Grey Poupon. You never heard
what?
Grey Poupon? Grey Poupon.
No.
Pecan, yeah, is with an N, right? Yeah, Grey Pecan.
No.
It's
What the
mustard.
fuck is that?
It's a
Are
seasoned
what, a
mustard.
mustard?
Hank, pull up Grey Pecan, please. Would you do
Yes,
that?
sir.
He's my go-to Amazon buy stuff. And by the way, Hank, while you're doing that, order me some. Send it to my Amazon wish list. Thanks.
Yeah, it's okay. You have to wait for me.
Grey Pecan mustard was popularized in the Wayne's World movie. Yeah, because he's driving by. He's like, "Would you like some Grey Pecan?" Because that was the commercial back in the 80s. You know, it was very sophisticated mustard, right? Would you want some Grey Pecan?
The
Good mustard,
sophisticated
right?
mustard.
Found it. Let me
Yeah.
share it.
So show him what Grey Pecan is. Educate this UK guy.
Are you fucking kidding me, Steve?
No, he's not.
Like I said, where is this kingdom that you call united, man?
Grey Poupon.
No, that's not. But yeah, there we go. There we go. Down. Grey Poupon, that yellow jar. That's not.
Oh, that yellow jar. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's black truffle.
Yeah, that's black truffle. That's not Grey Poupon.
What happened to the philosophers?
We're gonna get back into it in a second.
It's philosophy of mustard. Purple.
Go back to the Grey Poupon. That yellow jar is Grey Poupon. It looks like.
Is this one it? Which
Isn't it? That looks more like it. Yeah, the one above it.
This one I'm highlighting.
No, the one above it. The yellow. Grey Poupon's yellow.
The truffle. That's black truffle, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I can't read it. The Grey
Let's
Poupon
go there. Let's see what it is.
No, that's not it. Can't you just show Grey Poupon?
But that's a. Let me create it one more time.
Come on, I want to make his life even worse. Okay, come on.
I'm
That's what I'm
still
here for.
waiting.
It's Dijon mustard. It's literally Dijon mustard.
Dijon mustard. So why don't you call it fucking Dijon mustard?
Because the brand name's Grey Poupon.
Grey Poupon. Like the French
It's
call
filled
it
with
Dijon
white-
mustard.
it's
And
filled
you
with
go,
white
oh, it's
wine.
Grey Poupon.
It's Dijon mustard with Grey Poupon.
But what is
It's Dijon and white wine.
Dijon?
I don't
and
think they
white
have Grey
wine?
Poupon here.
Here on 1 second.
Oh my goodness.
Dave,
I'll look for Dijon mustard. But maybe I'll find Grey Poupon, but I didn't find the query.
I
I
found
probably
it.
spelled Poupon wrong.
It is a fucking
Grey
good job
Poupon.
for you.
Grey, not grape. Found it.
I mean,
Grey Poupon, Dijon mustard with.
I found
with
Grey
white wine.
Poupon Dijon mustard, not
Yeah.
Grey.
you know
don't
what?
have this-
I
You don't have this in the lands you call united in your
No.
kingdom? You don't have this.
honestly, I think
You're
this is
missing out,
a
man.
primary. This is exactly why you guys have aircraft carriers that can topple nations. Because if you didn't, we would be fucking on our way back over here right
We're not
now
coming back, you guys.
because of this shit. I mean, this is fucking horrendous.
We're not coming back to the UK. Sorry, bro. That ship has sailed.
We would be
okay.
on our way
Anyways.
over these 7 seas right now. This is fucking disgusting.
Yeah,
swear
it's
to
on
God,
Amazon.
I swear
I,
to God,
I spelled it wrong.
I swear to God, I really wanted to be able to hang out with just UK people one day, and I'll sit there and go, "What the hell are these people talking about?" Right? You know. But anyways, Dave. Dave.
Hey, how are you?
Frigg. Dave Frigg, are you from their Discord over there?
I'm calling it from YouTube.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
what? You just found the link? I mean, I put the link out there. You just found the channel, or you found what?
Yeah, just on YouTube.
Oh, cool. You've never been to my channel before?
I've been to your channel.
Okay.
Did he hit the like button?
I first heard about you, I think, a couple of weeks ago when Jim Bob had you on the show.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I have two channels. This is my personal stream channel. My other channel is the Non Sequitur Show, which is my primary big channel.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So welcome. Yeah. What you like philosophy stuff? I mean,
A little bit. I didn't watch your review of Jim Bob's
it's okay.
video, but I was curious. What was your issue? What was your critique?
My biggest issue that I had with the last one I did, where he was talking about the logical problem of evil, is that I don't think Jim Bob understood that the logical problem of evil has to do with the logical inconsistency of the system, and that to defeat it with a defense, you would need to show that the system is not inconsistent. And he started migrating into the evidential problem of evil, talking about hurricanes and toothaches, which are natural evils, which he doesn't agree with, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah, he started fixating on like you saying He thought that you were like adopting like this weird like like T-Jump's view on evil or whatever.
T-Jump is an idiot.
He thought that you were like adopting the view that like evil is like an imposition on the will or something.
No.
Sorry,
no,
I'm not involved in this
like-
conversation right
like
now,
a
but I just feel the need to
dispositional-
interject. T-Jump is a fucking moron.
Okay. Anyways, he thought that you were like adopting like a dispositional theory of evil or something.
Yeah, I have no idea where you got that from. I know T-Jump pretty well. I mean, we go way back, and I mean, look, we've long since kind of patched things up, and we do talk every so often. And he
The
wants to
whole-
come on. But listen,
the-
listen. If T-Jump ever wants me to come on, I'm happy to. I have nothing against the guy personally. I just think he's way out to lunch. But his argument for what's called the involuntary imposition of will is that if something falls on you, it's violated your will, therefore it's evil. That has nothing to do with natural evil.
Yeah, he thought that you
described
were
by
like
Roe.
yeah.
No, it
Jim Bob-
does.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
if God does something you don't like, that's not a contradiction.
Hank, stop. It doesn't. But El, go ahead, because
Jim-
Roe's definition of evil is standard in the literature. All he's doing is trying to refine it into something else, and it's not assailing even the evidential either. But T-Jump's view of evil has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, Jim Bob
Sorry,
kept
just-
like fixating on like ascribing the T-Jump theory to your view,
Right.
which I didn't
So-
really understand the point of that. It seems
either.
like
Just
there's a divergence.
Can I just
I need to get you to agree
really-
with this. If God does
I
something
ju-
you don't like, that doesn't necessarily make it
But-
evil, right?
I don't believe
Okay.
God.
I was going to. Yeah, I think. I think like the first video that it was the argument from effects of nature. It was just like a sub-variant of like the Louis. I don't know. I'm echoing through somebody's microphone right now.
I didn't hear anything.
It's like a sort of like sub-variant of some of like the Lewisian arguments from reason, but by Louis, not Kellogg Lewis, C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, they're big into C.S. Lewis.
But it wasn't like very clear. But then when he started talking about the problem of evil, it was clear that the objection just wasn't really. It was. I would say it was in like the lower tier. It wasn't even like I feel like Jay Dyer could have generated a much better attempt
And
at a
that's what I was saying, El. So let me ask you, El. I got that echo too. Is that Hank? Yeah, testing. Yeah, I think it's Hank. Hang on.
Go on.
Testing. Yeah, Hank, you have background. You have an echo. That's from Hank. So El, let me ask you. First, did you watch either of my two reviews? And two, was I so far removed from the academic literature to be in left field? And two, was my analysis at least decent enough to show that Jim Bob didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and his argument was not even grade school level?
On the first question, with respect to the first question, no, I don't usually watch like extremely long videos that are like over 2 hours long.
I kept these down to 40 minutes for that reason.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, I remember the first one was like a really long live stream, so I didn't watch it. No.
I thought it was like 40 minutes. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I may have
Maybe
missed. Can you just reiterate the exact? Because to me, I'm not like I'm not so advanced in philosophy. Can you reiterate the issues with was he creating a straw man in his argument, or what? I don't know. You mentioned the two different types of conceptions of the problem of evil before. I wasn't familiar.
Okay.
So,
Can
I-
John, let John do it. Go ahead, John, and then El.
So the problem that Steve had with Jim Bob's argument from the conception of evil was that the conception of evil, when you're arguing from the paradigm of an all-knowing, all-powerful God, is that there are no aspects of evil that happen without permission from the person who created the universe in which you exist. So there are no benign evil acts that happen, because all evil acts happen with permission from the creator of the universe.
Allowance, at least allowance. Yeah.
They at least allow
Right.
those acts of evil to happen. So you can't have a benign act of evil.
Unless you adopt like a Moldo variant solution, like a transworld depravity, like a
Well, transworld.
But they're still being permitted by the person who created the universe, right?
Plantinga,
and supported by the Bible.
Hang on, because this is exactly, Dave, what he was having the problem with. World depravity deals with the evidential problem of evil that Plantinga brings up. It has nothing to do with the logical problem of evil. Again, the defense of the logical problem of evil has to do with the inconsistency of the system. The transworld depravity is what Plantinga argues is the justification for theodicy against the evidential problem of evil. And that Jim Bob keeps conflating these things. They're not the same thing.
I do think.
Okay, which one addresses Isaiah 45:7?
What's
Which one addresses Isaiah 45:7?
Not every theist who believes in moral properties is a Christian, so it doesn't necessarily.
I understand that, but transworld depravity comes in that.
No, I'm referring to Hank.
Yeah. So which one, evidential or logical? Which one addresses Isaiah 45:7? Steve?
I think there are certain like modal variants to transworld depravity that could be used as like an attempted solution to the logical problem.
Doesn't Oppie argue similarly, Dave? Oppie will argue against this notion that in every single possible world that God cannot have allowed people to only be able to have free will among good things, between good things. So, because Jim Bob loves privation of evil, privation of good. He loves to describe evil as a privation of good, which doesn't solve either problem of evil, and that's only really used for the evidential problem.
You don't have to solve either problem because the Bible itself says God has created it.
Hank, stop. Hang on one second.
Yeah, but that's like very subjective, the hermeneutics. It's not. But they can always explain that away.
But Dave, do you agree that the whole point of a theodicy is to justify why there's evil in the world? It has to give a reason why that makes sense why there's evil in the world. At least the amount of gratuitous evil. Especially there's two. Okay, listen, there's two types of evils that they really talk about. There's moral evils, which require agents, and there's natural evils that don't. And I tried to explain to him intentionalities, and he didn't understand it. Natural evils are things that don't have intentional states, and it has nothing to do with T-jump. It has nothing to do with involuntary imposition or will. It has to do with these things happen that cause harm, and God allows it, and it's in the degree that He allows it. And when he could have prevented it to prevent a greater evil.
What he was conflating there was he was conflating like thinking that the event is evil itself and thinking that the event is evil with respect to
what that's not what they mean by evil. The evil is that God didn't intervene. That's the evil.
Yeah, I'm referring to an interventional norm. So if we assign an obligation to an interventional norm, it's not that the hurricane is evil. It's that the interventional norm hasn't been satisfied.
But that's what I tried to explain to him, didn't I? I tried to literally explain that as Roe defines evil and the evidential problem of evil, it is that an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omniscient being that has the power, knowledge, and ability to prevent a single solitary instance of harm fails to do so. Why is it that there has to be the amount of degree of evil that's in the world? That's the problem with the evidential problem of evil.
Oh, let's read the Bible. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things.
Wait. This isn't necessary because what if we just assume? What if we just assumed a theist who was a non-Abraham who believed in moral properties?
Can I ask what I think may or may not be a clarifying question? So if domino 5 falling into domino 6 is let's remove all of the emotion from it. Domino 5 falling into domino 6 is evil. That is an evil act. Domino 5 falling into domino 6 is an evil act.
What there is,
and we know that if we hit domino 1, it's going to fall into domino 2, domino 3, domino 4, and it is subsequently going to hit domino 5 into domino 6. There is a direct causal relationship. 5 into 6 is evil. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 5 to 6 is not evil. So the person who hits domino 1, is the person who hits domino 1 evil?
John, I see exactly what you're saying, and here's the thing: if I have knowledge of pushing that first domino for a causal chain of events that's going to cause harm by the sixth domino, that's evil. That's a moral.
Yeah, I
evil.
mean,
Okay, so my question is,
Yeah.
if you
Second order
deterministically have knowledge that your actions will cause harm, evil, by your own standard,
Yeah,
is that evil?
and the action, that's a moral act. You're talking about, see, again, we're talking about the moral act or the natural evil, right? The moral evil and the natural evil.
Well, I
It's two different things.
don't actually think it makes
Like-
the distinction here,
I
because
think
you're
it
in
does.
control of all of it, aren't you? Doesn't matter if it's a hurricane, doesn't matter if it's a
But
person.
if there's an intentional state, that's moral. If there's no intent, if the dominoes just fell on their own due to wind blowing or something like that, that's a natural evil. And for Hank, on
Yeah.
this whole Isaiah thing, when God created evil, that's up to a theologian to determine. I don't care. When
So-
God says He created evil, it doesn't make sense for privation, because privation of good. What did He create? But what He means by evil in the Bible, I do not deal with theology. I don't care about
So-
theology, so I don't know.
My issue is that from a moral argument, and the moral argument when we're talking with moral arguments with theists, if there is a person who has control, or if there isn't a person who has, or if there is a person who has sort of relativistic control of their immediate environment, the person who has control of all of it is an absolute. They have absolute authority, and therefore they have absolute responsibility.
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree.
So when we're talking about natural causation, natural things that just happen because of nature, for argument, for want of a better description, and things that have intent behind them, like a person behind them, a brain behind them. These two distinctions from a theistic or a non-theistic point of view, the two things that you're talking about, they're so distinct. You might as well be talking about.
But that goes to the intentionality. This is what I explained to Jim Bob. It has to do with the intentionalities. And as L points out, the logical problem of evil is way backer than Christian theology. So when Jim Bob's like, well, you're not using the Christian version of evil. Who cares? The formulation of the logical problem of evil was way back before Christian theology.
The thing is,
I care.
It is Epicurean.
I do care.
I don't.
So,
Okay.
we're going to say, I think one of the issues here with arguing that, what was I going to say? Oh, you're not like representing my theory of evil. According to my theory of evil, I don't believe. Well, here's the issue.
Right.
You could define gratuitous evils without a moral realist framework. Okay, there wouldn't be an evil, but for example, you could have a normative logic that defines a gratuitous fulfillment of norm conditions. Just on a purely set theoretic basis, we could simply define what is required for a success condition to be fulfilled. So it's sort of irrelevant to say, oh, you can't define evil. Okay, but I don't need like a non-descriptive account of what gratuity is.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, yeah, of course you.
I'm an evil realist. I'm not an evil skeptic, and so I think evil does exist. But that's exactly how I would do it. Evil is something that is described as like beyond just a normal wrong, right? I mean, doing is to harm somebody in a minor case, is not in itself, something that is necessarily evil, but some things that I find to be so morally egregious. That's the word that I would use, because it connotates something much worse. Than
a lot of apologists forget that there's reasonable distinction between ethical and non-ethical normativity. And they forget that God would have to have various non-ethical normative states. Maybe not non-ethical, but it's not that he would have non-ethical normative states, but that his normative states would be underlined or hinged by non-ethical properties.
Yes.
So what you talking about?
In fact, all you need to do is read the Bible to confirm that. There's lots of verses of God doing
You talk about his essence.
Yeah,
doing what we would call evil acts.
Yeah,
but there would be like a non-ethical normative structure to the normative ethical framework too.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like for example,
that's not what,
deontic logic doesn't actually you don't need to be a moral realist to like hold to some of like the axioms of deontic logic, and you could still quantify. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting like a bit too abstract.
No, you don't. No. I mean, deontic logic really doesn't really have. It's normative, right? I mean, that's going to be dealing with. Okay, what makes something wrong is that you have a duty not to do harm. That'd be deontics.
Yes, deontic logic can be defined within an anti-realist system.
Yeah, absolutely. Or either or. I don't think it really has anything to do whether it's more realist or not.
Yeah,
I would say that moral realist properties
has a better
still,
foundation in that system.
I would say that moral realist properties would still have to have all of the properties of non-ethical normative systems regardless. It's just that it's a necessary, sufficient relation. As in non-ethical normative properties are necessary for ethical normative properties, but not vice versa.
So do you remember what Jim Bob said in response? Steve, do you remember what Jim Bob said to your criticism?
I don't understand half the crap that Jim says.
Okay, I'll say it. So pretty much, he'll assert that God's doing something you don't like.
Oh yeah,
Therefore, no God.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant. Whether I like it or not is irrelevant. Is irrelevant to whether there has to be like a certain structure to normativity itself.
Why would me not liking something have any relevance? One, to objective cases. Objective morality doesn't care about your what you like or what you don't like. But if something's evil, and it's defined to be evil, given the definition for the evidential problem evil, why does my opinion come into play about what I find to be evil or not? I mean, what I don't like.
That's his point. And the Christianity and the God of the Bible are different identities.
Let me clarify. The argument doesn't have to be that you have to commit to a particular ethical system to make the problem, to use the problem of evil. The problem of evil could simply argue that under various ethical systems, normative ethical systems under theism, you still arrive at the problem. So it doesn't really, you need no, you don't. You need a system that sufficiently shares the same conditions that fall under the problem.
Right. But so why?
Is there like a Discordian equivalent problem of evil that you can give me? I mean, give me an analog.
Say that again.
Yeah. Like yeah, like if you used a different god, could you come up with another problem of evil?
It's not different. It's a different normative ethical system that's sufficiently similar so as to fall under the conditions of the objection.
But again, are you talking about logical or evidential?
It could be logical.
But the logical problem of evil requires certain conditions in premise one: omnibenevolence, omniscience, and omnipotency, omnipotent. These things are defined by the theist in Christian theology. They explain what they mean by these words, but they have these certain properties of an omnibenevolent being that has the power to stop harm. That doesn't do it, then it is inconsistent to have evil in the world, because evil shouldn't exist, because this God who's all powerful, all knowing, and has the potential to only do good would not allow for evil. But
that's contradicted by the Bible, so do not talk about the biblical God.
The Bible is irrelevant to the logical problem of evil. The Bible has nothing to do with the logical problem of evil. The logical problem of evil Listen very carefully,
Why would
this
you
is-
turn a deductive argument into
Right.
like a wasteful
Right.
2-hour hermeneutical dispute that they'll
Right.
never give in? Oh, well,
Right.
you're equivocating. Like, who cares?
Hermeneutics has nothing to do with this problem, Hank. This is where Jim Bob made the fundamental error that you're doing as well. And Elle seems to be, and probably John, are the only two that seem to understand this. The logical problem of evil has to do with the inconsistency of the truth values of the premises. Period. That's
Then
what
it's a
it
straw
deals with.
man. That's not the
No,
God.
it's not.
That's not the God we're talking about. It's a straw man argument.
I don't give a shit what God you're talking about. I'm talking about the God that has been posited by theologians since 2,000 years.
Well, not my God. Straw man.
Well, you're polytheist, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't
So
have to
you're
be
talking
the
about
problem.
God that no one worships.
All right,
It's funny because you could make like the problem of evil under like a moral anti-realist theistic framework if you just have a non-moral account of normativity. You could just have the problem of divine normativity and its inconsistencies, and due to these like structural normative I mean, I would have to go into an example of it. You could simply say
you could just have just theism, Al.
Where is the contradiction between benevolence and omnibenevolence and let's say hurricanes? I don't actually fully understand.
Okay, if you were an all good being, Dave, would you want people to suffer? According to Jim, yes.
Well, I'm not an. I can't. I mean, there could be like for the same reason that from the perspective of a child being punished by a parent, and in that moment they might see it
That's not suffering.
Yeah,
We're not talking about that
be,
type of suffering. These words have very specific usages.
From the child's perspective, it's suffering.
Well,
being punished.
You're talking about the distinction between justified punishment and just fucking abuse.
Right. Let's put it this way: if you're an omnibenevolent being, do you think that is just and righteous to arbitrarily harm innocent people?
I'm limited in my thinking. I could be wrong, though. Even
anybody could be wrong about anything. That's a throwaway sentence. I hate when people say I could be wrong. Everybody could be wrong.
Yeah.
You have
We could all be wrong.
we all assume we could be wrong. What?
The distinction between me and God would be that God, if God exists, he cannot be wrong. I could easily, from my human perspective, be wrong about. There's emotions involved. There's, obviously there's a lack of.
Oh, okay, sure. But from your perspective, would you allow for that? Would you allow for a person, if you had the ability to stop it, would you have the would you stop?
If I thought there was a greater good to it, then I would do it.
If I knew that stopping it wouldn't change the outcome anyways, because I could always just make the ultimate desirable state of affairs occur, then I wouldn't care.
But that's what Roe argued.
From a pragmatic perspective.
Roe argued, Roe even said in the definition for evil is that it would not if it didn't have a consequence basically of a greater evil. So if God could intervene and it didn't produce a greater evil, why does he do it? This is from the definition of Roe's definition of evil in the evidential problem of evil.
It seems like it's a lack. The fact that we have a certain lack of comprehension for why God does things is an argument.
That's Nestorianism, though. That's just saying that's just we don't know the mind of God. We don't understand the ways of God. That's throwing up your hands in the air and going, it's mysterious. As a sentient being who has a moral framework, if I could stop harm like that, I would.
It's also the case, like it is also from your perspective an act of absolute arrogance that you could ever know the mind of God. Like, I mean, would you ever understand the mind of God? Could you ever expect?
Of course not.
No issue. I mean, we can't.
So therefore, like the punishment that you receive, you just have to accept it because you can never understand the mind of God.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally say that. You can say that to anything, John. I mean, literally,
yeah, of course you can.
It's the mind of God.
It's regressive. It's mad.
There's always been that old adage, right? God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, but then the issue there is you can just underdetermine this theory by applying it to hermeneutical facts. So then it's just like, there are no like revelational norms by which he is obliged, and then it's like, we can't even derive the conclusion in the first place.
But that's all interpretative. That just seems like it'd be getting in the weeds if you just want to take interpretations and dive into the hermeneutics. It's like irrelevant to the fact that You cannot have an all-powerful, omnibenevolent, all omniscient being and have evil in the world.
Yeah, but
Now-
that's some Platonic God. So
Now, could you argue different gods out there? Yes, and most theists will do that. They'll limit the scope of these terms, okay? And because the logical problem of evil is valid and it's sound, but it's not very convincing because it only works for a specific type of deity.
I don't even accept any of the problems of evil, but I mean, I don't think any of the responses are all too great either.
Well,
I
think
agree.
Penting,
I don't accept
you know.
any of the problems of evil either.
Okay, so which premise is wrong in the logical problem of evil? Because one of them has to be wrong.
I think that the defense of like interventional norms is like a bit too weak.
But here's the thing. I understand you don't accept it, but it's still it's a valid argument, right? I mean, but you have to say that one of the premises is false. Which one's not correct?
Premise
think-
two
I
is
think
false.
that it's
Remember,
quite unintuitive.
premise
I
2 is
wouldn't-
false.
I do think it's quite unintuitive to reject like interventional norms if you're a moral realist. I would say that. I think one of the issues is that they're going to like always appeal to like some sort of like fine graining, where it's like, oh, it's an interventional norm in this sense, and we're only obligated when it's this condition.
I agree.
And,
No, I agree. It is an interventional norm, right? But I mean, for somebody to say that there's no evil in the world, I don't know how. Again, how is it again? Unless you're a moral, say evil skeptic, in which case, all you're just doing is defining evil differently. You're not accepting what they mean by evil.
Exactly. That's it. That's the point.
That's not a defense of the argument. That's that's semantics.
They're saying the argument doesn't apply.
Listen, you could change the word. Like for example, he used the word suffering in his example. Okay, but the original Hume's version used evil. Well, actually, it is Epicurus, but whatever. But I mean,
Yeah.
when it's formalized, it was really Epicurus, and
It's like Mao or whatever.
yeah. So you could take out that word evil and just say there are things that happen that causes harm to people. You could put it in that if you really wanted to like break it down. There's harm in the world. You don't think there's harm in the world? Hank?
Yeah, and if I was pulling on my guess, theist, I would say God put it there.
Okay, but he's omnibenevolent. Why would he harm somebody?
No, he isn't.
Oh,
I'll back in 5 minutes.
if he's not if he's not omnibenevolent, then you deny premise one.
Yeah, I reject premise 1 as well.
Okay, so God is
So
God
both
is
premise 1 and premise 2 are false.
okay, so God is partially evil.
Well, if God created evil, then yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Dave, do you agree that God is evil?
Like God is evil.
Yeah, partially evil. We'll go with the ditheism, which is basically that God is not all good. It doesn't have to be all malevolent.
I don't see
but
a
he's just not
contradiction between not having a full understanding of having an understanding of why God does something in His existence. I don't see a contradiction.
That's a
Well,
good
but
point.
again, we're not just again. This is
That's a good point. So we can't decide yet.
This isn't due to epistemic lack of understanding. This isn't due to lack of understanding. We're observing things from our vantage point. And if you look at a benevolent being would not do certain things based upon our understanding of benevolence. A benevolent king is not going to act unfairly. A benevolent king is not going to overtax their subjects, their peons. So a benevolent king is not going to be a dictator. Those are antithetical to what it means to be benevolent.
I think that like a theist who holds to like moral realism could attempt to like argue for like a very, very strong anti-consequentialist position and hold that interventional norms only hold for pragmatic reasons. But I mean that would square with the Bible. But we're referring to any.
So you're saying that God does things because he's pragmatically disposed to do so for his own ends?
No.
Then what would be the pragmatism there?
No, the argument is that there is like no like someone could argue that interventional norms are not inherently obliging, but rather only pragmatic.
No, I agree. I think they are, though. I think that you have an obligation to duty. I think that these interventional norms are something as an honorable person.
But God disagrees.
It would have to be an internal critique, though. Yeah. It would have to be an internal critique.
You don't speak for God, Hank.
Well, I tried to show you the Bible itself when you said no hermeneutic. So I don't know what we can do now. We're at an impasse.
because hermeneutics is just the best waste of time to me.
Well, yeah, we're at an impasse because we can't see God's word, and I can't speak on his behalf. So we're at an impasse. We can't get anywhere.
Well, you don't have to speak on his behalf. You can say according to some version of Christianity, but
Well,
Hermeneutics.
but what version of
systems
Christianity are you using
theoretically
specifically then
established.
when you assert all knowing, all loving, all omnipotent? Which version of Christianity are you using specifically?
the Omni version with Anselm's.
I mean, that could be classical theism.
well, that's Anselm's. Anselm is classical.
Anselm.
theism. Yeah,
And
you
so,
can't-
who's different variants from scholastic?
yeah, but so for example, omnipotent, right? When most theists posit omnipotence, they're only saying that God can only do what is logically possible within his
Yeah.
nature. He cannot do things that are logically impossible. But you do have theists out there, and I've spoken with them, who says God can do the impossible. God can create a square circle. God can create x does not equal x. God can do whatever the hell he wants. But the
Like
problem with
Cartesian omnipotence.
I assert Cartesian omnipotence,
no.
but not for Yahweh.
no, I don't.
Not for Yahweh, but I would assert that
on.
God.
I don't think
Except
Descartes
Cartesian
argued.
omnipotence.
I don't think Descartes argued that God could cease to exist.
Well, not Yahweh, but the thing is, once something's omniscient, but gets that powerful, I really can't comprehend what states. So I won't.
Hang on. There are logical necessities and there's nomological. And I don't think Descartes argued that God can do illogical things. And I don't think God argued that God could do something like cease to be because he's necessary. If I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I looked at Descartes. But
Yeah, I couldn't comment on that.
But omnipotence, there are some Christians still out there, but the logical problem evil doesn't take in the term omnipotent to mean capable of doing logical contradictions. And so
Sure.
that's understood. And so when you're dealing with the logical problem of evil, the words used are well defined in what they mean by that. And they show that if you have a deity that can do anything he wants within his power for any kind of contingent change, and is all good, all loving, and knows all there is to know, then he in itself would not want there to be any evil in the world. I mean, for example, why does not God allow evil in heaven?
I don't know. I've never been to heaven.
Well, Steve, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Can suffering or harm or pressure, could that make something better?
Yes, and that's the
Someone
theodicy of a
to
soul
have
building.
a negative experience that can make.
That's a soul building exercise. Hicks,
So
if I'm
what?
not mistaken. Soul building theodicy?
I accidentally exited again.
No worries. Yeah, a soul building theodicy is that we have learned things. But the argument from that is, in some possible world, I had one less natural evil. So why did God actualize this possible world, and not the one that had one less?
That's another issue. Is
Not only learning,
the problem.
bettering yourself, not necessarily learning.
That's another issue with the free will defense. Is that it tries to define free will in terms of the availability of normative options.
Sure. Yeah.
When there could be worlds that have like different moral conditions according to the differing situational parameters.
Yeah, there could be moral counterfactuals.
There could be there could be certain like norms that we can't even like conceive of as of now. That would apply.
It's funny you mentioned that, El, because I was just not long ago I was reading something about if we discovered alien life, they might have different understandings of classical logic. It's not that they're right or wrong, but they might have interpreted things in a different schema to get to where they're going.
There could be
more dolphins.
There could be like logistical problems that are created just from like the existence of something that has like a trillion legs or something that we wouldn't even know of, hypothetically.
Right.
So what exactly constitutes like sufficient removal of I keep using the term normative, but to constitute a violation of free will?
Well, the thing I actually discussed this with iFi, pretty much. We kind of figure out that free will is just nominal. God can literally just make you do absolutely everything like you're a damn character in a video game, and if he just blames you, you have free will. And so That's what I concluded from the
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean, regardless of like the philosophy of free will, the problem of free will, even if we like grant the premise, it's not exactly clear why it constitutes a violation of free will to create a world where there are less conditions generated from less moral conditions generated from the background itself. For example, ought implies can. What it leads to is that your norms that are generated are going to depend on the status of your background, right? By background, I mean your descriptive background, like fact of information. So why isn't it an avoidance? Why is it a violation of free will to create a world where there are less conditions that would lead to a violation of norms, but it isn't in relation to a world that has even more conditions that would lead to certain norms?
Can you give an example? I don't exactly understand what you mean.
Like I gave the example of like a trillion-leg giant bug that would create certain logistical demands, which could in fact generate certain moral obligations depending on the context.
How would the bug be relevant to our moral?
Yeah, it would be a bit to think about, but for example, like if you have a fire, the set of norms that are produced by it are going to be different from if you don't. And you could hypothetically apply the same thing, assuming all other conditions, maybe not all other conditions are equal, but as long as you're like human and you have to approach the situation within human constraints.
Yeah, that's why I end up reducing this to emotivism, because it's like a personal preference of the object in question in their sensory systems.
That's not. Hang on, Al. Have you ever read Starship Troopers?
Oh no, I haven't.
The big bug brain. That's it. Having a society of aliens like the aliens in Starship Troopers, they might have developed a completely different logical system, based on understanding, which is a little more convoluted, but still gets you where you're going. Hey Hank, what do you think emotivism actually means?
It's the yay boo. I guess but a theory of
Booyah.
ethics, I think.
Booyah theory.
Yeah.
Wait, what's booyah? Yeah, what's booyah? Because you keep bringing up emotivism, and I have no idea.
Yeah, it's yay boo. Yes.
Yeah,
theory
booyah,
of ethics.
Yay, boo, whatever.
Yeah.
But what is it? It's a non-cognitive position, correct?
I'm not sure if it's non-cognitive or not. Let me double check.
It is a non-cognitivist, particularly formulated by A.J. Ayer.
Ayer is a big proponent of emotivism. Just because you have a personal preference for something has nothing to do with emotivism. Emotivism is a
meta-ethical theory.
It's not normative. It's a meta-ethical theory that states that propositions are not actually propositions when they deal with morality. There's no moral fact of the matter. There's no moral. There's no moral truth maker to be had. So propositions are just statements. They're not truth apt.
Yeah, go on. Sorry,
okay. So what's your moral truth maker for against natural evil?
Hang on. So when you say something like stealing is wrong to the emotivist, it's boo stealing, which is not propositional. Boo stealing is not propositional. It's a statement. It's a declaration.
Yeah.
Either that, or they would hold to like a supervenience view on propositions, or they're reducible to other propositions that would be considered putatively non-moral.
Okay, but they're punitive for that very reason. I mean they're So either still the original proposition, stealing is wrong, is not expressing something of something that can be true or false.
At least not distinctly true or false in relation to anything else in our database. It wouldn't be sui generis as like a subset.
Yeah, there's no truth maker, correct?
Yeah, there's no distinct truth maker under certain views, but then there would be other views like imperativism? No, it's not imperative. What's the view that what's his name held? Where prescriptivism, Hare's prescriptivism, which holds that moral expressions don't even need to be embedded since they're not even declarative moral statements, ethical.
No, I think they are declarative, because a prescriptivist would argue don't steal. I mean, stealing is wrong is don't steal. That's declarative.
No, a scriptivist, yeah, they would say don't steal, but don't steal wouldn't be declarative, it would be imperative. Declarative would have like a specific like copula function to it. Like it would have to be like a declarative statement would have the form such that it's like truth functional in classical logic.
I do agree with imperative. I do agree with that. I have to think about this. Yeah, I still think it's a declaration in speech act theory. I'm not going to sit there and search through my speech act theory stuff. But if you look at speech act theory, when you have a commissive and you have an imperative, but you also have a declaration, which is basically something that's just being stated in the very act of the locution.
Well, the point of prescriptivism is what you're trying to do, like the Frege gauge problem, for example, the Frege gauge problem, for example. For most non-cognitivists would want to give an account of a truth-preserving instance of moral embedding.
Correct.
So
it doesn't do that.
So that they avoid the Frege gauge problem. Whereas a prescriptivist would say moral expressions aren't even propositional in form, let alone content. Okay, and so they can't be embedded in the first place.
Well, they can't be embedded because they're not truth apt. If I go to emotivism and I say boo stealing, then premise one, boo stealing. How does it embed? The Frege gauge embedding problem is literally how do you use the emotivist's view for a syllogism or an argument, you know?
Yeah.
And so Hank keeps bringing up emotivism as, oh, this is just your attitude. That's not what any of this means. And
that's not
make the same mistake.
So it's like a conflation between what emotivists take to be the primary component of their view and what they actually take their view to be. For example, you wouldn't say that you're a theist just because you believe in a universe, when theism is the view that the universe was created by an agent or whatever.
Theism does not require that the universe was created by an agent. You just need to believe in one God.
We can go over like the semantics of theism, but that's just an example. I mean,
not in classical theism. In classical theism,
look, classical theism is just a name Abrahamic claim. So it's like Abrahamic theism, but thrown into Platonic metaphysics, Platonic metaphysics for Abrahamism. So
all my arguments deal with non-classical theism.
Is boo stealing? That's not an attitude.
Is what?
Boo stealing. That's not an attitude.
It would be an attitude.
It's an attitudinal state toward the statement. But Hanks is trying to say that we just don't like this to be the case. But emotivism has to do with propositions. I don't like this This proposition is boo on this. I have an emotion towards this particular proposition.
So it's boo hurricanes. Just because attitude.
There could be like a moral realist go on.
But just because I don't like something is irrelevant to one, if there's one, objective morality, or two, natural evils. Natural evils exist whether I like it or not. They're stipulative. They're literally stipulative what a natural evil is in the arguments. And
there could hypothetically be someone who holds to a normative ethical theory where everything that they every aesthetic preference that they have happens to correspond to moral facts, even if by coincidence. And that would still distinguish them from an emotivist, for example.
Yeah, because emotivists don't accept moral facts exist.
How can there be...
they don't even think they're meaningful,
Yeah, they're cognitively non-meaningful. They're not cognitivist. That's the whole point of having emotivism, prescriptivism. What's some of the other ones? There's
quasi-realism.
Quasi-realism, and there's like one other that's really big. But I can't think of it off my head. But those are
there's emotivism. There's the other one is expressivism.
Expressivism, Thank you. But yeah, these are generally the canonical positions for non-cognitivist positions. They don't think they're even meaningful. They don't express an actual proposition. I've had this discussion with Ozzy how many times? I mean, way back when. This goes back years.
Yeah.
But do you think, Al, do you think that Jim Bob has any understanding of this stuff whatsoever? Because I certainly don't. I'm not trying to shit on the guy. I happen to actually like him for some strange reason. And I mean, he's not being an asshole on Discord. This is why I really rather talk to him on.
I wouldn't say that he's like a complete moron or whatever. That's certainly true. Yeah, I mean, but I would say he's only like studied like a certain aspect of it. I would say.
Well, I agree.
How about biology? Does he suck at biology?
I haven't really seen his views on biology.
Because somebody was bringing up telomeres, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so stupid. About information in DNA and all that stuff.
Agree with him. I basically agree with him that if God doesn't exist, then there's morality is basically comes down to preference or.
That's silly. I can't. Why?
Why wouldn't I hate to make it seem okay, but like even if you grant that, why wouldn't it come down to preference if he did?
I don't think that's too quay, but we'll grant in the worst case it is. Yeah, why?
Why what?
Why would it come down to just preference? Why would you take the brothers Caspioff approach that if God doesn't exist, that anything's permissible? Why?
Because I think for what morality means is the way I understand what morality is basically it's a hierarchical concept that has to do with authority. And if there's no authority,
why does that's deontological? Why does?
Yeah, but we could just come up with like a hypothetical.
Yeah,
if there's no authority, if there's no force or authority to do something, why should I do it?
Why would you assume morality must be by necessity something related to deontologics? I don't understand why it has to do with deontology.
But when you say force, it sounds like you're referencing like a hypothetical imperative. Like we hypothetically have like the strongest possible enforcer, such that nothing could violate him, even if he never wanted such violation, nothing could be violated. But that's just like a might is right anti-realist. I don't really.
That's almost Machiavellian.
Yes, exactly.
What you're doing is you're just fixate. You're fixing everything to like this totalizing pragmatic norm. It's still pragmatic. It's still stance dependent.
It's very stance dependent, and I don't think that morality is stance dependent. I think it can be in certain cases with moral realism, moral relativism, or cultural relativism, or historical relativism. But I really don't subscribe to any of those. I think that 90%
it's like,
of the time I deny them. There's only certain instances where I can even begin to say it's culturally relativistic.
Like what if we had like this what's the term, full accounting stochastic Laplacian demon that happened to know like the pragmatic outcome of like every single branching of every possible scenario. Would that really be moral realism if you decided to follow his guidelines because of that?
It's ethical.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. John, you got.
I wasn't saying anything from pragmatic. I wasn't saying anything based on a pragmatic framework.
Sorry, John had an echo.
Okay, so would you be making like a deontic argument, or would you?
Basically, I don't know the exact philosophical verbiage to describe it, but I would say that without God, if God doesn't exist, then I don't think there is purpose or telos, and without a telos, I don't think that you could be striving
for a telos
for a moral good.
So what is this telos? What is like the ground norm of this telos exactly? Because I don't know how you're bridging the gap.
The grounding for telos?
Ground norm. By ground norm, I mean like the fundamental directive. I don't mean like the justification.
The fundamental directive?
What he's asking is, if God exists, what would be the first, you accept a categorical imperative, and two, what would be the ground for the normative actions based upon God's saying something is the case and you obeying it? Because in divine command theory, what's moral is you obeying the act of obedience of God is what's moral. It's not that what God says is moral. That's not divine command theory. Divine command theory is action based. It's based upon ethical subjectivism.
So are you saying that it's the only like motivationally compelling model because it's the only one that can really like totalize like all striving?
Well, I think it happens to be. I'm not saying it's motivational. I'm not saying it's the best explanation because it's. Are you saying like motivational, like a psychological reason?
No,
No, normative.
it's the only one that could like totalize like all of like our meta motivation. Never mind. I don't want to like speak on that.
I can ground it it's pretty easy for me to ground. So if we assume might makes right, if God is almighty, then he is alrighty.
Yeah, but that's his dictatorship. That's not.
But it's grounded.
All right. So Dave, let me ask you this because I love this type of discussion. So Dave, if and work with me on a hypothetical here, okay?
Go ahead.
If God's vanished tomorrow, if he just ceased to be, and this is where Jim Bob loses his mind because he cannot process a hypothetical. And forgetting about if God is sustaining the world or not, irrelevant. Forget about theistic personalism. Forget about great demurge that's sustaining the universe or anything, and forget about the principle of Trinity verities, that God can't cease to be. If God did cease to be, would you do anything morally different than you're doing now? And first of all, if he vanished tomorrow, would you even notice? Let me ask you two questions. One, if God vanished tomorrow, would you notice?
Would I notice? Well, I don't know if it's possible, but you're saying work with
that's why it's a hypothetical.
I would say yes.
It's possible. Hypothetical. How would you notice God disappearing?
Oh, because since I used the aggregate model, everyone would just quit being a Christian, Muslim, Abrahamic religion. So that's how I would notice.
How does that even follow?
Because
how would they know God disappeared?
They lose their faith. They lose their faith. That's all you know. They just lose their faith.
It's a hypothetical. It's just
Yeah, they lose their faith.
Why?
Can we just continue?
Because God disappeared.
Hank, you're way off in the weeds here. So.
Oh my.
Dave, if God disappeared, one, you wouldn't notice. Two,
hey, I'm the only theist here.
No, Dave's a theist.
Oh, Dave's a theist. Oh, okay.
Dave, what would you do morally different?
More agnostic, but yeah.
Oh, you're not Christian?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Okay, I was right again.
I do have a question though. I don't know.
That's fine, but I really want him to answer. What morally would you do different? I mean, and by the way, so you're doing an external critique of Jim Bob's because this is not your positions, right, Dave? You don't believe in God, so it doesn't matter.
I think I basically agreed with his argumentation.
That if God existed. It's hypothetical in your case. Okay.
I lean towards. I definitely lean heavily towards God existing. However you want to.
Well, then how are you agnostic?
I mean I consider it agnostic because I'm not.
No, so you lean toward, but you.
So you're basically like an agnostic theist who holds to like a fallibilist view. Like, I'm like hypothetical. I mean, just for like granting the term, I guess.
All right.
I really try.
Dave, are you convinced? Wait, are you convinced there's at least one God? It's a yes or no question.
Convinced? No.
Okay, then you're agnostic.
We'll put you agnostic
now. All right, that's fine. No, I just want to know what framework we're working in. That's all that matters for the conversation because I just want to know. I don't want to like straw man it all. So I will, for the sake of the argument, just go by your agnostic. That's fine. So hypothetically, because now this is even better because now we can deal with all kinds of hypotheticals. If hypothetically God didn't exist in Jim's world, what would you or Jim possibly want to do different? Don't you have your own moral sense? Doesn't Jim have his own moral sense? What does he need God to tell him what's moral? If you have this innate understanding of what is right or wrong that's been instilled by your society and your family, why would you, if you only wanted to not do something immoral because you're afraid of the consequences of God, that's not an immoral. I mean, so that's not a moral reason to stop. That's just saying, oh well, I want to do this, I want to be immoral, but God's preventing me from doing it. Then I'm like, good, believe in God. But
No,
if
I
God
wasn't
ceased
saying.
to be,
I wasn't saying because of consequentialism. I was saying that there's a telos. There's a telos for directed towards the good.
well, we again, purpose is we can assign purpose, right? I mean, we all have ability to assign purpose. That's the whole point of existentialism. But what I'm asking you is, would Jim be outgoing? Would he be doing immoral acts if he found out there was no God? Do you believe that he would?
You mean like the worst acts possible that
Sure.
you have a nation for?
Sure.
I mean, I don't really see how it's relevant, but I don't know.
Well, it's extremely relevant. It's
How?
goes to the core of
Well,
the matter.
you say he does more acts with God, so
right, but a lot of Christians will do minor immoral acts, but they won't do
Yeah.
major immoral. They won't.
But you say-
venial versus mortal sins.
but you say he's doing more acts with God, and you say he'll act no differently without God. So the answer is
Right.
yes, by your framework.
Oh no! So you're saying, like, for example, like let's say we're all not sociopaths.
No, by your
we are.
framework, he would do the act exactly the same way he's acting now, and that he does a more acts. So by your framework, yes.
So Jim wouldn't be out lying. He wouldn't be out killing. He wouldn't be going on a killing spree.
You say it argues dishonesty, and that's immoral. So he would not act differently.
So
So
why do
by
we
your
need a God
framework,
for morality
the answer
then?
would be yes.
So why do we need a God for morality then?
He was convinced that there was no.
If none of us are sociopaths and none of us are going to go out and commit moral atrocities or go on to be psychopathic killers, why do we need a God?
Here's the problem. Your model doesn't have a test with divinity. So
I don't give a shit. Why do we need a God if we all understand morality?
because that premise is false.
How do you know we understand morality? Let's say God exists. How do you know we understand morality if we're working within a framework that God exists?
Do you know right from wrong?
Maybe that's only because due to being a creature of God. How do you know? You have to assume that God doesn't exist.
No, you don't. God existing or not is irrelevant. We have, as a fact, a understanding of what is right and wrong actions as sentient, sapient, moral agents from evolutionary standards. Even, our whole concept of morality came from evolutionary processes.
And why does anyone commit an immoral act at all?
You're working
Because
from
they violate the social norms.
The social who makes the social norms?
Society. That's why they're called norms.
So it's society's collective opinion.
No, it's much more deeper than that. It's not just opinion. And by the way, just because something is opinion doesn't make it not important. There's something called the consensus theory of truth. Consensus theory of truth makes something true by consensus. That's how science works. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a fallacy.
Oh, okay. So the consensus inside that the Earth is flat, even though the physics disagrees, it will be flat.
Consensus theory of truth, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because again, as John noted earlier, we're not dealing with certainties. These are not having to have to do with certainty. And this is where the presuppositionalists, and this is where Jim Bob and that gang over there try to obfuscate, and they try to confuse people because they say, well, how do you know? How do you be certain? It has nothing to do with that. But Dave, do you agree that you're going to do right or wrong based upon whatever moral theory you attach to yourself, and that's going to be independent, as Elle pointed out, stance dependent on your views, that even
I can formulate the question.
It sounds very external. I mean,
okay. Go on.
No, go ahead.
If God exists, how would I know?
I don't.
You're working in a framework in which God doesn't exist.
Okay.
How would I?
Well, you can't know either way.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you can't know either way, Dave, then don't you think everything you've ever learned about morality has come from a non-God place or some other place other than God? Because if you don't know God exists, how do you know how you have any idea where morality is coming from? You're just attributing it to this deity. And if it did come to this deity, what makes something moral? The fact that he said it, or that your actions are what he's commanding? If your action is that he's commanded it and you've done it, that is divine command theory, that's the moral good.
Yeah, but it comes back to you not having a test with divinity.
But it doesn't matter, because if God doesn't exist, then divine command theory is clearly false. And so you're not based upon the action that you're following, that God's rule. What decides good or bad is some other theory of morality that determines normative action. And I go to virtue ethics. Some people go to utilitarianism or consequentialism. But simply, Dave, if God ceases to be, if you don't change your moral framework, then it makes no difference if God exists or not. This is why Jim Bob's saying that, it has to come back to God. Why? You're not, nothing you do is going to be different.
But you put a premise in that if God ceases to exist, everyone will act exactly the same. That's assumed in your premises.
I've never said anything of the sort.
All right, well, people can watch the clip and look at the premises.
Motivational.
So they can make their own decision.
Most people would act differently if they found that God didn't exist.
Well, that's scary. Then they have no moral framework of their own. They're just saying, hey, look, I am doing this merely because there's consequences with God. That doesn't make them moral. That makes them fearful.
Well, you can't. You're taking away one.
They could argue that there are different moral facts that are necessitated from it, but
I don't disagree with that. But we're talking about moral facts that are objectively one way or another in moral realism, such as the harming of innocence just for the sake of being cruel is objectively immoral. Using a hypothetical imperative with the grounding in eudaimonia, that is objectively the case. That stands independent. That has nothing to do with God. God can't change that. God cannot change hypothetical imperatives if they're goal driven, because these are objective facts. God can only do within his nature.
I suppose there's a distinction here between cause explanatory dependency and inferential dependency. And I think that a theist would want to say that ethical facts are inferentially dependent on God rather than explanatory.
But that goes to your moral epistemology, I think.
Sure.
And I think that Jay Dreyer had a discussion with this girl atheist chick a couple months ago, and I was just watching it. And she seemed that I don't know this particular atheist girl. I don't think she's on Twitter, because I mean I know a lot of atheists on Twitter, and I recognize her. I've seen her before, but she was having this discussion with Jay Dreyer, and she kind of seemed like she was knowing what she was talking about. She's probably a atheist, which it means everything she says is wrong, anyways.
Yeah, there's actually a really big problem with your assertion. There's a really big problem. So if we say, hey, if there was no state, there's no regulation on how you build this building, there's no zoning regulations, would you build it differently? And
would you build it unsafe?
And most developers would just say yes. So we can tell the difference if the zoners believed in the zoning enforcement and they didn't believe in zoning enforcement, they'll not follow zoning enforcement. So we can tell the difference between the government enforcing zoning and the government not enforcing zoning by the behavior of the builders.
So if there was no building code, Hank, you would build unsafe buildings.
I wouldn't follow the building code anymore because it's not there. I would go for safe buildings, but I won't follow the building code that's not there.
My question was, would you willfully build an unsafe building if you could?
I don't know. Probably not.
The fact that you even said I don't know scares the shit out of me, to be honest with you.
What is
well, it depends on what you mean by safe.
Pretty scary.
I put me able to safe to my standards, but you may disagree with me. So I would say I think safe, and you say no, I don't think it's safe.
There's either safe or not safe. That is a logical dichotomy: safe or not safe. Period. Either safe or it's not safe. You're having to think whether you built something that's not safe. That scares me.
Well, I don't know what you mean by safe, so we may just disagree on what the safety standards, because now safety standards are exactly the same. That's why there's different building codes that exist now. They're different cities, they're different codes. They don't all have the same code, Steve.
Unsafe means there's a potential for harm that could be alleviated by building something safer.
So which building code is correct? Which one's a safe building code? Because they're not the same code.
The one that produces the least amount of harm. But again, buildings differ. But I'm saying if you could build a building that you know has the potential to fall down and kill people within several months, but you get your money out of it, would you do it?
No.
Okay. Well, then what do you need God for?
I
Well,
think
maybe I won't. Well, maybe I won't build it for several centuries though. Maybe I build for only a couple of centuries. But someone would say, "Well, it's unsafe. We should build for the whole millennia." And they say,
can
"Well,
only do
that
is
would cost way too much. We
you
could
can
just
only-
we could destroy the building anyways."
No, you can only build what structurally it has structural integrity for so long. But the Greeks, with their cement, with using salt water and limestone, they were able to build self-repairing structures with concrete that lasted millennia.
But would you require that for each and every building?
No, because that's not the intent of the building. The buildings, we know they're going to be torn down and replaced eventually. All buildings are eventually torn down. All of them. We don't have the same buildings we had 2,000 years ago. Very few, if any, maybe. And
very rare cases.
Yeah, they're not designed for 2,000 years.
I think the
So which
Alcazar
code
in
is safe
Spain
then?
is like
Which is the
1,500
right
years
building
ago.
code? Their building code or ours?
I don't think you understand building codes, if that's your question. Building codes are formulated formulations of things that have to follow to based upon society's understanding of the best safety conditions as best practices.
Yeah.
In other words, wiring codes.
So why is there more than one building code if things are just safe or not safe?
Because sometimes there might be two different ways of doing things that might not have any difference between them, especially in certain wiring. Some wiring might be done one way, one the other way, and that we've discovered there's really no difference between them. So do either way. But some people might have a preference to a certain building code because they're better at doing one particular running of wires than the other. So it might be beneficial to have more than one code, or at least have the ability to do something that you're better at, which is not going to mean unsafe. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. These outlets in America. I know John's going to probably get lost here because America.
I know this one.
John, do you remember America? John, you still there? Did John?
The Mickey Mouse outlets. Tell us about them.
Yes, the Mickey Mouse outlets, right? All of them pretty much are upside down, right, with the grounding at the bottom. But it's better to have the grounding at the top. It produces less stress and strain on the wires.
And some people disagree with that.
And some people disagree with that.
Yeah. So I would say they're both safe, but some probably disagree with me.
Yeah.
So
actually, it's not even the stress and strain of the wires so much. It's what happens is that if you have the best way they found to do it was make it at a 45-degree angle. That's the best way for the plug.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, because that way you don't have the plug come out a little bit, and you can get something that falls in there. Yeah.
Yes, that's been confirmed.
But 220 volt systems are better at having less losses. So we use 110 in America. It's 110 to 120, which is 117 RMS. Over in the lands of the Kingdom of United that John doesn't have instantaneous, unfortunately. They use 240 volt. Why? Because you have less transmission losses and it's more effective. It's also more dangerous. But which would you rather have? Would you want to have something that's, as long as you do it properly, even though there's more of a danger there, it's still better in the long run because it has less losses. And so you save more money. It's more effective. Does anybody follow that? Or did everybody?
Yes. I watched the Technology Connections video on that. I'm very interested in that stuff. But you understand my point that it's things on the ground aren't as simple as the safe, non-safe dichotomy. There's no universal one code to specify safety.
But there is when an objective moral fact there is, if you're dealing with a hypothetical syllogism. And I still don't understand.
Yeah, but falls apart. It falls apart in careful examination.
I still don't understand why you need God to have morality. I just cannot wrap my head around why you need ethical subjectivism.
Because their behavior would change, apparently.
Well, that's because they just want to do bad things. But that doesn't mean the fact of the matter is it's an immoral act. It goes against normative principles. And
but then we agree normative principles are just a group opinion, though?
No, not when it's objective. Subjective, sure, or more relativism, but that's not my argument.
Where does the objective?
And even then, so what? Even if that's the case, that's not a defeater, because even in some cases there are moral subjectivist positions out there. Okay, so what? And if it is group opinion, so what? What is that? Who gives a shit? It doesn't mean
I do.
that it doesn't mean that some of that wouldn't be wrong. There could be group opinion that it should be right to go out and do something, but the other person's looking in going, of course that's not a good. That's not a moral good. That's where morality comes into play. Using the ability to think and reason to say this is not a good act. We don't need God for that. I don't need God to tell me that the Holocaust was evil. I don't need God for that.
But some people do.
Well,
Let's say I
that's
think murder
scary.
is okay.
What?
Let's say I think murder is okay, and you think it's wrong.
I would say then you're a sociopath. Society already has a thing for that.
What makes me immoral? The fact
Because
that
you're a sociopath. Because you're a sociopath. That's the standard.
being a sociopath.
Yeah, but the issue with the term murder is that it already like presupposes
Ontological,
moral realism by assuming like a moral distinction
duty to
between
law.
occasions of execution.
Yeah,
duty
so
to
he
law.
does say killing, then
Murder-
you have an actual issue because
Murder-
killing's not
murder-
necessarily wrong and sometimes
Right.
permitted by the state itself.
Murder is a legal term, right? Murder
Yes.
is a legal thing. So violation of murder is inherently violates the duty to law.
Yeah,
So
but
it's already more
homicide's not necessarily illegal in certain
Right.
cases. Like a cop can,
Yeah.
So a cop can shoot someone for being too threatening legally.
Yes. But this is where the skeptic comes in, the hyper skeptic of the presuppositionist. Well, how do you know the moral act? Sometimes you may not. And unfortunately, that's just the ambiguity of morality exists. And we as moral agents try to do our best to understand it, but we may get it wrong. But that doesn't mean there has to be a God, because God gets it wrong sometimes too, or it seems to be able to do things that the average person would not be able to go around doing. Like,
yes, God
flooding the world.
Yeah, God would get it wrong unless you assume might makes right. Then God can't get it wrong as long as he can enforce his policies.
Sure, but that's a stipulation of, oh, well, God can't be wrong because he's perfect. Okay, well, that perfect being, in my opinion, has done a fallaciously harmful, evil act. And that particular being probably doesn't
wrong,
exist.
Right?
What?
If we say that God exists, he wouldn't be wrong, right?
Well, that's just definitional, though. Satan can't be wrong because, Satan says that this is the good. Satan says he wants somebody to sin. Okay.
No, but I'm saying when you say God does things wrong, that statement is akin to saying God doesn't exist, correct?
When I say that in my opinion, if that particular God exists, that either he's not all good or he doesn't exist.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you think God could exist? He's evil.
Not 100% benevolent. Yeah, not in the Old Testament, at least.
You're not using the argument. You're not using the argument of evil against God's existence. You're using it against the traditional.
Well, sort of. I mean, the evidential problem of evil is a probabilistic argument by nature. The evidential problem of evil, it says that it's less likely that a God exists. That's all it's saying. It doesn't say that there is no God. The logical problem of evil is saying that this particular God can't exist by local necessity or narrow necessity. But the evidential problem of evil is strictly a probabilistic argument. It's less probable than more probable.
Yeah, here's a issue. We can get that one specific God, but someone like jump up and we could say, well, that specific God you're talking about is not the God we're talking about.
Okay, that's fine, but even still, God allows evil if it exists, and so therefore, why does he allow the exact amount of evil that exists in this actualized possible world?
Because he feels like it.
Yeah, that's not an explanation.
How do you know it's ultimately evil?
I didn't say it was ultimately evil, and I really hate how do you know questions because people generally aren't asking how do you know something. They're using it to obfuscate.
What I'm saying, you're saying something is evil. What makes it evil is basically like what characterizes something as being evil.
Moral or natural?
Let's work with natural.
What makes something naturally evil? Here, I'll even bring it up again because although I probably should have it by rote memorization by now. 1 sec. Okay. All right. So.
Argument, right?
No, I don't like that version of it. Let me see if I can find his exact definition. Here we go. I just got 1 sec. Okay, so Rowe defines it as this. There exist instances of intense suffering which an omnipotent, omniscient, wholly good being could have prevented without thereby losing some greater good or permitting some equally bad, or permitting some evil equally bad or worse. So what he's saying here is that evil is defined if God exists, that there exists instances of intense suffering from which an omnipotent, omniscient, wholly good being could have prevented without thereby losing some greater good or permitting some evil equally bad or worse.
So how do we know it's not for a greater good?
And by the way, that's really, I mean, he kind of defines it as this is actually goes into the whole thing for atheism, but he's actually still talking about evil, just FYI, because he's
evil is defined as suffering,
human and animal suffering.
Yeah, so evil is defined as suffering,
but does not lead to a greater good, or that has not lead to a worse evil. That's again, you got
that leads to Dave's question.
But when Rowe was talking about this, he has said that this doesn't lead to a greater evil. That's a big stipulation from this, right? So he's kind of getting around trying to get around the old soul building theodicies, right?
Well,
and then he argues that an omnipotent, omniscient, wholly good being would prevent the occurrence of any intense suffering if it could, unless it could not do so with thereby losing some greater good or remitting some evil equally bad or worse. In other words, if you have the ability to do this and it didn't lead to worse things, worse consequences, or if it didn't losing some greater good, then an omnipotent, omniscient, willfully, intentional, wholly good being should prevent these evils.
Yeah, well, that means you would do some calculations to figure out if it was the best possible
God would
world
know
or
this,
not.
though. He's all-knowing. God would know this.
Yeah, he would know this, but we wouldn't know it.
Okay, I get that. But that just goes to whole Mysterianism. You know, that's that. And by the way, that is a theodicy, I would think, to the evidential problem of evil. Well, we just don't know. God works in mysterious ways. I just think that's a cop out.
What if we like applied the same reasoning to like the government or whatever?
But the government is an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipowerful being.
Yeah, but there could still be like a sufficient epistemic gap compared to like the common people.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, look, we have to assume that the government in most cases is telling us the truth. In most cases.
Yeah, like Jack Talcott says, there should be no secrets, but the government has secrets because if we let them out, someone could use them to attack us and hurt the citizens.
I would agree, and I believe that the government has an obligation to lie to people to prevent greater harm.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think in most conceptions of God in the classical religions, there is a mystery to God.
Sure.
There is an aspect of mystery.
It depends. There's like a range to it. So, for example, like classical theist Catholics will generally minimize the amount of Mysterianism required, whereas like an open theist would almost apply to everything.
Yeah. If you're sticking into open theism and Molinism, you're dealing in a different genre altogether.
For God to exist, we don't have to understand him to the maximum ability.
Yeah.
I don't see why that's
Dave, somebody wants to know, do you talk to Jim Bob on this?
On this topic?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. And by the way, I do want people to, I don't know if you've ever, I mean, Dave, you've been over in that Discord. Is this not a much more conducive area to have discussions with? I mean, I always let people, unless it gets too much in the weeds, try to answer the question. They don't even want anybody to answer questions that they ask. What, Dave?
You're saying this compared to Jim Bob?
Yeah, because over there at that Discord, I've only been in the voice chat once. Before. But they don't allow for anybody to answer a question. They don't want anybody showing anybody how philosophy, is.
Oh, it's too like fast paced. This is I call it the debate bro fallacy.
Yeah. Well, they throw things out there left and right, and they don't ever suss out.
It's like if I like put you in like this fast paced debating environment, and like you don't have enough time to like draw out your thoughts because you're like processing a lot of variables. Oh, you must be an idiot.
100%.
It's like that's not how the history of philosophy works. A lot of go on.
Good. No, I'm sorry. You just have long pauses. I don't mean to stop. You just have long pauses, and I think you're done. And this is how you speak, really slow. And so I do apologize. I'm not trying to cut you off. This is with long pauses, and I think you're done. And you start up again. So forgive me. You're a slow speaker. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that.
I like pause in between, but then I get like very fast and I'm not paused. It depends. Sometimes.
Yeah, well, you parse out your thoughts, and I think we all do. And especially when you're dealing with something so technical or having to do with the complexities of philosophy, most of us want to be taken one, not out of context, because you know that they're going to take things out of context, and two, you want to be explanatory. You want to be able to explain something to someone who's listening in to the conversation so they understand it. And so when they start throwing out all these things in this rapid, fast pace debate me bro thing, it doesn't do anybody any good, because
correct.
They're not letting you help anybody understand it. If you noticed, El and Dave, whenever we start talking about these subjects, I try to explain to the audience what the hell we're talking about. And if I'm wrong on these things, I get corrected. John corrected me early. I made a boo-boo on the get air problems. I blame it on the coffee. But I didn't sit there and say, John, you're wrong, you're an idiot. I thought about what he said, and I was like, oh shit, he's right. But I don't ever see that happen in the Discord.
The issue, even like if you like watch like Quine's interview with like Brian Magid, you'll notice he's like a very like slow, expansive talker. He likes to compound everything together before he says everything. He doesn't he's not impulsive. He doesn't just jump onto the spot. But like people would think that Quine is like an idiot. Like if he argued with a precept, because he's more of like a written communicator. It's very
well. That's what happens when people, I have people where they're like, Steve's an idiot. I'm like, okay, it's clear that you don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. And when you're talking about something on such a high level than somebody who's literally ignorant of the topics, literally ignorant of the topic, and they're calling other people idiot, it's like, yeah, why bother have a conversation with them? You're not. You're dealing with people that are fundamentally stupid.
It's not.
The dumbest people think I'm an idiot. I like it.
It's not how fluid intelligence even works.
Right. I don't think Hank. I don't think Hank's. I think Hank is extremely, extremely intelligent. We just don't see eye to eye on things. But I would never call Hank an idiot. It just wouldn't even cross my mind. Now John, on the other hand, but whatever. No, I'm kidding.
I would call someone like an idiot if it were like clear to me that they weren't like processing categories that well, and they were also being very arrogant. I probably would.
I do. I agree with you, and I do as well. But like I said, we were talking about thermodynamics, like one subject that, even though I forgot an awful lot about, I literally studied at the academic level. I graduated from nuke school. I have a background in reactor operations. I had to study thermodynamics, thriller theory, even though I have forgotten probably 95% of everything I've ever learned about the topic. But I was explaining entropy in the Discord, in the general chat, and this guy named Talk understood it. Talk, whatever his name was, he got it. He was, or at least was getting there, because he clearly was not an idiot. But the other people in there, they were just like, oh, Cope Moore, Steve's an idiot. I just block them. I have no intention of having a conversation with them. And it saves me a lot of time. And they've recused themselves from having a dialogue with me or having any intellectual conversation, because they're not even understand what the fuck you're talking about, because they're idiots.
You're a Reddit atheist.
You hear that? Steve says he's good at baking.
I can't bake. I wish I could, man.
Reddit.
You know what's funny? You know what I do? Oh my God, Hank, I do hate you now. I do.
Yeah, I know.
Because I really want to go out after this stream, and I want to get me and my roommates some cake or something. Kano, do you want some sugar? Do you want some cake today?
Cake is a lie, Steve.
Nothing with cake.
So
Yeah.
Are you being perverted? Yeah. Which boy toy you have today? Do I want to know?
Ron.
Oh Jesus! My roommate, I tell you, man, that girl, she got boy toys, man. Like she got this long list of people. I mean, player, you're a fucking player. Is what you is. She knows it. I'm telling you.
If I moved out there, maybe I could be on the list.
Oh shit, she would break your motherfucking heart, bro.
Excellent.
Hank
Then I can feel something.
Hank says he wants to be on your list.
Oh, really?
Hank, you're not a bad looking guy. But here's the thing. I'm not trying to be racist, but she likes white guys. She likes
I understand.
She's black, but she likes white guys. So it's not
Well,
racist.
tell her I vote for Trump once or something.
No, wait a minute.
That makes you white enough, right?
Your prison guy, he's black.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess you are a player.
He's 35 years old.
He's a baby.
Yes, he's 35.
Shit, she's a player and she likes them young.
I'm a little younger than he is.
You're how old are you?
32.
Damn, I got socks older than you, bro. He's 32. Is that too young for you? Nah.
I'm legal. I'm legal
Oh, yeah.
in the United States.
That doesn't-
Don't worry about it.
But hey, look, anything under 21, forget that. 21, even me, 35 is probably 32, and 35 is probably my cutoff. But anything under 21, why the fuck would you think it? Just waste of fucking Nope, 21. For anybody who's over 21, it should be 21 and up. Yeah, but I mean, my perfect woman is somewhere in the 35s to 40. Oh, magnifique. Boy, did we just get off topic? Why are we talking about your sex life, by the way?
Well, we don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Can I ask you if you want a cake?
Trying to work in her DMs. That's why.
They never asked me that. My mind is elsewhere.
You don't want no cake? Sugar?
Oreo.
Oreo or something. I'll figure out something, but I'm thinking about getting something really sweet. I really want some sweets today.
I wanted some Thai food.
You got Thai in the freezer. Finish that.
I don't want that.
Why? She's like, I want Thai food. I'm like, we got a Thai meal in the freezer there. She's like, I don't want that. I'm like, it's Thai food. Anyways, welcome to my world, man. Welcome to my world. Where the hell are we at, man? We're still talking about.
Can you
go right here?
Can you go over why JB, what you disagree with? Was it he equivocate? What was?
I
the
mean,
issue
it's
there?
kind of like already.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question or his answer.
Can you go over your critique of Jim Bob?
I did already. He conflated logical with evidential. He kept going back and forth. Yeah. I mean, you didn't watch my review, but do you think he kept going back and forth between evidential and logical, not understanding either?
I have to watch it again. I only watched it once. And I was distracted, but
I'm talking about his last video on the logical problem of evil, not his first one. There's different problems there. But Al, do you think
It was a very coarse-grained video that he made.
Yeah, but I mean, if you read the comments like, "Oh, this is brilliant. This is brilliant," I'm like, "This is like not even basic intro level. I mean, this is nothing that would even. I mean, he
It was like he always brings up Yelp. This is like a Yelp review, as always uses that term.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with having very basics for stuff. I mean, I do a lot of that too. But at least when I'm talking about, you can find in the literature if you want to go learn it. He's just. I don't even know what to make of it. It's like I said.
I don't think he's making inflation. I think you just don't like his arguments. So he's trying to use. Well, he's technically wrong.
Well, of course, I don't like his argument. It's a bad argument. I've shown us a bad argument. Of course, why would I like a bad argument?
Then give us a good argument.
Don't conflate the two problems of evil. There you go.
But don't you think even if you did the argument correctly, you would still reject it. So what difference does it make?
How do you have a correct argument if you don't understand what you're arguing against? He literally bringing up things that the evidential problem evil deals with and putting it into the logical problem evil. Why? Why would he do that? Hank?
Probably a nerd snipe. Probably a nerd snipe.
What does that mean?
Let's look at an XKCD.
Yeah. Hey, Kawasa, how are you, my friend? I know Kawasa has never joined a panel, and he says he never will, but I really hope to God one day he does. I would love to have an actual conversation with Kawasa because I mean I go way back with him, and
that would be cool.
Yeah, we would. Oh man, Kawasa won't do it though. I don't know. I'm not going to force him into it, but I mean, hey, Kawasa.
But maybe God will. Who knows?
Why don't you have a wrench, Kawasa? Can I give you a wrench? Can I figure out how to do that? Quasar should have a wrench. He's
Yeah, you just go into a YouTube studio
Yeah,
and find a
I got it.
username.
I know how to do it. I'm just kidding. What?
I think that the privation theory is like
You-
one of
you
the
ha-
worst.
you-
examples.
You have a wrench?
No, I'm talking about we need to.
Oh, I know.
So look,
Shoot. Yeah, like I said, now she wants to do the housework, but yeah. And then after housework, can I go get food? Sugars?
That's true.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Yeah.
food is immoral.
Food is immoral. Yeah. There you go.
Let's look at the XKCD article on nerd sniping.
Well, you could do it when you're off work, Quas. I know where you're from. I know where you live. I know what part of the world you're from. I've been there. Yeah. We'll make it happen one day if you want to. So he listens while he's working. You know what? That's what it used to be. A lot of people would listen to my stuff while they were working, and I love that. Yeah, Kano does. When she's working, she listens to my stuff. I think that's great when people just sit back and they just listen to people talking in Hangouts. We miss those days. Remember back in the day? I mean, Hank was in a few of them last year. But I mean, I'm going back like 5, 6, 7 years. In fact, I found something. I'm just gonna say this. You're gonna hate me for it, or whatever. But I found some old Hangouts going back 11 years with Red's Rhetoric when he was under a different screen name. I'm not going to put the screen name out. He's going to kill me. But he's, and I think
Bring it on, Reds. Bring it on. I'll protect Steve. You're not going to get him. Maybe freaking dick rockets.
Rez was a theist when I met him. I actually deconverted him to atheism, or at least agnosticism.
Yeah.
Unintentionally. And but his voice was so much different than it was now. He wasn't fully he wasn't fully gone through puberty or something. His voice was a little bit higher, but it was so funny listening to him. I'm like, oh my god. I was talking to him yesterday or a day before on it maybe, and I was like, Reds, man, you have really come into your own because you sound so much more mature, deeper voice. Your arguments are so much better. And I love to see that kind of progression, you know? Yeah. But anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, I love when people listen at their work hours.
I think you should go on to Jim Bob's show tomorrow, Steve.
I've already been on a show once. Nah, he invited me on once. I showed up, and then the next time I said, I'll come on, he said, no, I don't want you to do it. I said, that's fine. I respect that. Because he wanted to come on here, and I was doing my review, and I'm like, look, I'm doing my review, but I'll set up another time. And he never got back to me on it. But here's the thing: I don't mind going on other people's panels, but they should reciprocate and come on yours. But let me get him in here real quick. But the problem is that I have no need to go on a panel where I'm not going to be allowed to have a conversation. I went on SJ's panel, and I was able to talk with her and Derek, and we had an amazing discussion. Go check out SJ Thomason's video; it was super good. I had a fun time. It was I enjoyed it, even though SJ.
No, I don't care about your theory. I don't care what he or she writes. What is your position? No, I'm not here to let you. I'm not here to let you explain like this field to me.
Yeah. So what's the point?
What is your position?
Here's what's going to happen. Jim Bob is cultivating an echo chamber of idiots. This is what's happening. I've seen it a million times. I've been around a lot longer than Jim Bob has been. I've seen many people take his path. Many people. He's not the first. He won't be the last. But every single time, it just devolves into this echo chamber. And sometimes it can get bigger. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you've got, Inspiring Philosophy did very well, but he still allows for, dissent and stuff like that. Perhaps Capturing Christianity has done pretty well. But they actually are educated and well familiar with these topics. But look at somebody like Dark Dawkins. Does Dark Dawkins really have that much of a following? No, he has.
Nope. He's a clown.
Right. He's a clown.
And that guy.
Yeah.
And you can tell I said that.
And so, I think Jim Bob is just, the latest iteration of these types of theistic, sophistic resurgence. And they come and go. Yeah.
So here's the thing. If he allows me on the show, I will totally go on it, and I will say to him what I just said to you today. And pretty much will be kind of, you'll probably interpret as bashing you. But here's the thing. I don't want to go in the same direction. I don't like idiots. I don't want to make a cult if it could be only idiots. So what should I do?
You can bash me if you disagree with me. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think for a second you think that I'm a moron.
No, not at all. You're a genius. You're a genius.
I want to go that far. I made it one time, but I mean, that's just by the numbers, but not
Yeah.
anymore. I'm nowhere near what I used to be in my intellectual capacity.
Oh,
Nowhere
okay.
Near, yeah. I've diminished.
So-
I mean, I'm older. Your brain shrinks. Things happen, right? But I mean, I was able to do things in my 20s that I was able to think differently and a much greater level. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, to graduate nuke school, you cannot be an idiot. I'm sorry. You just
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do in the smart forms, I'm gonna use computers to cheat. So that's what I'm getting smart over time. Still.
Yeah, I think
Now,
we'll have biological chips one day.
Yeah. So I don't want to go in Jim Bob's direction. I don't want to have a cult if it's gonna be full of idiots. So what would you do to keep the idiots afraid?
Here's the thing you got to remember. Remember the types of techniques that I've explained about why and how they shut down conversation. One, they do obviously arguments by assertion. They're right, you're wrong. Okay, well, that's fine. That's a throwaway. Two, they bird dog you. So every time you start to speak, they'll constantly interrupt you. And then third, they use moderation controls to try to shut you down or try to divert from the conversation what the actual answer is, because they don't want you talking about the actual answer when they ask you a question. I've seen all these things, and they're very dishonest techniques. It's one thing to say, look, I don't want to go down this certain rabbit hole, but if I ask you a direct question and your answer is directly related, I will give you all the time you need.
Oh, so you just bore the idiots with nerd stuff. Excellent. That's what I was going to do anyways.
Yeah, I think out of all of them, I think Andrew Wilson's probably by far the best interlocutor and communicator. I've heard that he has gone that path with other people, and I believe that, but he's never done it with me, and so I only go by what I get, right? And so I could probably have a conversation with Andrew on an awesome conversation actually, but I can only have that conversation with Jim Bob on my channel. I don't think I can on his panel because he's just not conducive to that. He doesn't want me explaining to his audience these things because he has to make sure his audience is isolated from the actual philosophy or even how to have different positions. He has to keep that echo chamber.
Yeah. Well, there's an option. You could probably do some kind of cross-panel thing where it streams to both of your channels and you have the same privileges. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, we've done something like that before with other people. I want to have a discussion with Jay Dreyer. I asked him the other day. I left a message to him if I can talk about what he was talking about with atheist chick, because everybody was like, some people in the comments were like, atheist chick didn't know what she was talking about. I'm like, or nobody understood it. I'm like, yeah, she made sense to me. Yeah, that's not matter. If it makes sense to me, then obviously it's not unintelligible. But Jay was running his, hardcore apologetic rhetoric, and I'm like, come on, Jay, stop. I hate when Jay does that. Jay is not a dumb guy. Jay is educated, but he decides to become very belligerent and very argued by.
It's a transcendental category.
Yeah, it's transcendental category. Transcendental. Half the time,
it's meta logic.
What's funny, El? I don't think I've ever even heard, and I don't watch Jay that much, but has any of them ever said what they mean by transcendental? I know what transcendental means, okay? But do they ever come out and I'm sure Jay knows, obviously. I'm not saying Jay doesn't know, but for the sake of his audience, has he ever explained what a transcendental argument is? Because I accept transcendental arguments as a rule of logic. Transcendental argumentation.
Go on.
Well, I just want real quick. Transcendental argumentation is a formal argument in logic that is a rule of logic. It's a principle of logic that works. Okay? And I get atheists out there going, you're an idiot, Steve. You're an atheist. No. Don't conflate a transcendental argument in logic, which is a rule of inference, a valid one, with the transcendental argument from God. They're not the same. The transcendental argument for God obviously uses transcendental argumentation, but
I'm not.
What's that?
I'll say it after.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm not aware of there being any inference rule called transcendental arguments in logic.
Oh, I am.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that would be like philosophical logic, but not formal logic.
No, it's formal logic. Yeah. Transcendental, I would say it's formal logic. I mean, I would have to ask maybe
not in the Kantian sense. No, it wouldn't be.
Okay, well, I do, propositional logic, but I'm not sure Kant's view on it. But the way if I say X is a necessary precondition, X is a necessary precondition for Y, and Y is true, then X must be true. That is a logical entailment.
Sure, but transcendental arguments are informal.
No, that is I would take that as a
No, I
transcendental
mean,
rule of logic.
you could have a modus ponens or like a hypothetical syllogism or anything of that sort. But, I wouldn't call it a never whatever. It's more so like a semantic implication than a syntactic one.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it under, if a Kantian approach, to more of a form of just general logic, I guess. You know? But still, I mean, it's whether you think it's formal or not, it's still a rule of inference that makes sense, right?
I mean, depending on the interpretation, because I've generally had like a skeptical attitude towards transcendental arguments, not just for God, but for anything.
Okay, but if you need X to have Y and X is true, then it literally can be no other way. It's by at least local necessity or narrow necessity. Not by
I mean, I wouldn't go on.
Same with modus ponens. The conclusion must follow by narrow necessity, not necessarily broad necessity.
I wouldn't call it a transcendental argument. Like, I wouldn't say like, oh, you need to be shorter than a doorway to like walk under it without ducking or something. Therefore, that's a transcendental argument. I think that would be like a de re necessary statement in the context of modal logic.
I agree, but I think in the Kantian sense, he would have probably argued when he was talking about transcendental arguments is that if something is the case that has to exist, to have something to do with something else, if the something else is the case, then it already by logical inference, the precondition must have already been met. In other words, let me ask you this, Al.
That's like a modus ponens.
Sure. In the justified true belief, I've always argued in the local sense, not the broad sense, but in local or narrow necessity. If S knows that P, then P must be true by transcendental argumentation.
There is like a warranted inference for P. Therefore, yeah, I mean, therefore yes. P, sure. I mean,
it has to be true, right? Because if S knows that P has to be true.
If the inference for which P is argued is truth preserving, then P, yeah, I mean, sure.
Agreed. Right. And by the way, there are arguments that modus ponens is not truth preserving. By the way, I don't know if you read them, but
yeah, I mean, like Kane Baker goes over a video on the problem of deduction, where he goes over like the concept of modus morans or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Kane Baker.
But that's
I don't
think that future contingencies will involve that as well.
I don't think that you could have a transcendental argument without like some sort of like modus ponens. At least some valid instances of it. Well, all valid and whatever. But like hypothetically, to have a transcendental argument, you would have to accept that at least some instances are valid.
Yeah, but at least you understand when I'm saying that by narrow modalities, if you're talking about link modalities, that
okay,
if S knows that P must be true is something that could be logically inferred using a transcendental argument.
Okay, so by narrow necessity, do you mean like de re necessity?
What I mean, no, not de re. I'm not talking about de re or dicto. What I'm talking about is that the P doesn't have to be true. In other words, there are possible rules where P does not by necessity have to be true. But in the local scope of the argument, if S knows that P, it means all the preconditions for justified true belief have been met, therefore P is true. So P must be true by the argument, by the
hypothetical necessity.
Sure, if you want to go with that.
Oh, I generally consider de re to be a hypothetical necessity.
I understand de re and de dicto is more of a semantic content.
Yes, but like in terms of like what it conveys, there's like the semantic aspect, and then there's like the modal aspect. Like when Kripke goes over.
Honestly, I've never really looked at the modal aspect of de re and de dicto, only the semantic, because I'm fascinated by Kripke's rigid designators. Fascinated by that. I don't.
So one of the examples that he gives is if your child is like shorter than a yardstick, then it's de re necessary that they're not tall enough to ride at like the roller coaster. That's not his exact example, but it's like sufficient.
Heard it that way. Yeah, I've always learned de re and de dicto is like the object itself. With the mayor, so John in the mayor instance, I don't remember the exact formulation that whoever was used, but basically the semantic content of the individual themselves, which is the category. More stricter, dedictive versus de re. But I do gotta get going, guys.
Okay.
We still have. She's ready to do the housework now.
Back to work, Steve.
Hi, guys. This has been great, but I really appreciate it. Like I said, these are discussions that I'm trying to have more often late at night. And I want people to come join, and if they think they've I'm going for I'm going to nap too. I'm going to
So do you have a Discord server?
I do,
Yes,
but I don't
do.
use it. I have two, but I don't use them, so don't worry about that. But you can follow me on Discord to send me messages and stuff. But I want to show the difference between people that can have a common discussion. And I'm just going to straight up say, I'll go over to Jim Bob's Discord and I'll talk to some of the people over there, but 90% of them I think are absolutely morbidly dishonest and disingenuous and are not looking for an actual discussion. And so I'm not going to have time for any of that. So, but anyways,
So did I make the good to talk to list? Or just a naughty list of this?
No, you're fine. Always a pleasure, Hank. Always a pleasure. You know that.
Oh, okay, copy.
Yeah. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Al, thanks for joining. I'll see you guys over in that Discord. I pop in every so often. I usually late at night when I can't sleep, I pop into their Discord because there's usually somebody on it.
Okay, I DM'd you earlier.
Okay. I'll get back to it later because, like I said, I gotta get some stuff done around here. So with that, guys, thanks for watching, and yeah, leave a message and know what you think. Leave me a like and a comment and all that stuff, and let me know if you like these kind of conversations, and better than going to a Discord where you're just going to be shouted down, talked over, interrupted, not having a proper conversation with people that clearly don't know what the hell they're talking about. Peace.